Chapter 801. In the side hall, a group of guards stood far away from the door. There were only 5 people in the hall: Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi, Feng Jixing, Minister of Works, and Qin Xiling. Your Highness, you must have something to tell me to stay, right? Qin Xiling asked. Yes. Lin Muyu put her hand into her Jianghu bag and searched for a while. She took out a black stone and said, Minister of Works, Xiling, take a look at what this is. This is? Qin Xiling took the stone and was stunned. It's so heavy. What kind of stone is this? It's completely different from ordinary stones. And it's cold, just like what? It's like coming from the cold hell. Hee, the stones of hell aren't cold. Lin Muyu smiled and said, this stone is called a demonic heart stone. It contains a kind of thing called demonic heart stone essence, which can be extracted. The essence is the nemesis of God state experts. Once it enters the bloodline, it can solidify the flow of divine power, making God state experts unable to use any divine power for a short period of time. This kind of demonic heart stone is produced in the celestial pole continent. Some of their weapons and arrows are tempered with demonic heart stone essence. As long as these weapons pierce the skin, even God state experts will become ordinary people. Feng Jixing was stunned. This is really one disaster after another. Our strength is already inferior to the celestial pole continent, and now there's this demonic heart stone. It doesn't matter. Lin Muyu smiled. Anyway, we only have so few God state experts. What difference can it make? You're quite optimistic. Feng Jixing laughed. Also, the demonic heart stone can't penetrate the divine wall, so it's just a decoration for God state experts who have comprehended the ability of the divine wall. In general, the demonic heart stone is used to deal with those God state experts who don't have profound cultivation. Previously, it was basically used as a weapon to fight between the sects in the celestial pole continent. Tang Xiaoxi blinked and said, Mu, the demonic heart stone is so powerful, and you're a master of forging weapons. Why don't you temper the essence of the demonic heart stone into your weapons? Actually, I've already tried. Lin Muyu pondered for a moment and said, although the demon heart stone can break divine power, it is incompatible with the material of steel. It will destroy the rigidity of the weapon. If I refine the essence of the demon heart stone into my weapon, then my weapon will not be able to bear all of my divine power. It will break by itself. How can such a weapon cut through the protective aura of an opponent? So there are pros and cons. Feng Jixing rubbed his palms together and smiled. Then what do we do now? Why did you leave Xiling and the Ministry of Works behind? The demon heart stone can't be used to make weapons, but it can be used to temper arrows. After all, arrows are a one-time business. Once they are shot, there is no hope for them to turn back. If you're lucky, the arrows can indeed be a deterrent. As she spoke, Lin Muyu took out a black and white arrow and said, Here, this is my failed product last night. I refined the essence of the demon heart stone into the white diamond arrowhead. I've tried it. Originally, the white diamond arrowhead could easily shoot into the rock, but this failed product actually broke the moment it touched the rock. I'm afraid it will also be very difficult to shoot into the body of a God state warrior. Your Highness, are you saying that after refining the demon heart stone, the arrowhead became brittle? Qin Xiling asked. Yes, you're right. It became brittle. Lin Muyu frowned and said, perhaps the molecular structure of the demon heart stone is in conflict with the white diamond and iron. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so brittle. Last night, I fiddled with it for a long time, but I still couldn't understand it. Xiling, here is a piece of demon heart stone and a white diamond arrow. You and the Ministry of Works can take it back and study it. Qin Xiling nodded. I'll go back and study it, but I can't guarantee that I will be able to find out the reason. Something that even Your Highness you can't understand. I don't have the confidence. No, I believe you. Lin Muyu patted his shoulder and said, You are the Empire's #1 genius, Qin Xiling, one of the most outstanding people in the Qin clan. If even you can't solve this problem, then no one can. Xiling, you developed the magic crystal cannon and saved the Empire from the iron hooves of the demon race. This time, we still have to rely on you. Qin Xiling nodded deeply. Yes, thank you your highness for your praise. I will do my best. Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows and said, Big brother Feng, transfer 10 imperial guards from the main hall. From now on, they will stay by Xiling's side and act as his personal guards. Xiling alone is equivalent to 2 of our regular armies. And I understand. Feng Jixing agreed with a smile. Qin Xiling was extremely grateful. Thank you, your highness, for your kindness. No need to be polite. Lin Muyu said, Ah Yen is Xiao Yin's cousin. Speaking of which, you can also be considered as Xiao Yin's cousin. It's just that she hasn't had the time to acknowledge you yet. As long as Xiao Yin can come back, I will definitely persuade her to acknowledge you as her cousin and grant you the title of king. This is my promise, and I will never go back on it. Qin Xiling's entire body trembled. His entire person was dumbfounded. He was born in a distant branch of the declining Qin clan. His father had already given up on him, and the entire clan had given up on him. But now, he was the head of the weapons department and was already favored by thousands of people. He had made his father and clansmen look at him in a new light. If he was granted the title of king by the empress, then he would simply reach the peak of his life. Thinking of this, Qin Xiling almost cried. Don't cry, you're a man with a full beard. Lin Muyu teased him. Qin Xiling still wiped away his tears and said, Your Highness we've known each other for 31 years. It's already been 42 years. These 11 years have passed by in the blink of an eye. You bunch of monsters will always have the same handsome appearance, but Xiling has grown old. Perhaps in a few years, Xiling will be an old man. When I see you again, don't, Xiling. Lin Muyu interrupted his words, We will forever be friends, no matter if we grow old or experience the vicissitudes of life. I have already passed on the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll to you. You have to cultivate more outside of work. Don't worry, we won't wait until the day you die of old age. We will definitely let you live forever. Xiling nodded his head heavily. Then I'll go. Foster father, let's go back and study it together. The Minister of Works was also extremely excited. Qin Xiling had recognized him as his foster father a few months ago. Now that he heard that Qin Xiling would be a person who would be granted the title of king in the future, then he would be the father of the king. How could he not cry tears of joy? At this time, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the door. It was Chu Yao. She held a letter as she walked in. Her beautiful eyes were red and filled with tears. Once she entered the side chamber, she began to cry. Older sister Chu Yao, what's wrong? Lin Muyu hurriedly asked. The letter in Chu Yao's hands fell to the ground and her shoulders trembled. She could not help but cry loudly, Great Deacon Guyang, he has passed away. Ah! Lin Muyu took a few steps back and stood there woodenly. Gu Yang and Lei Hong were of the same generation, but he did not step into the god realm, so he would eventually die of old age. One by one, the elders passed away just like that. At this moment, Lin Muyu felt that the cycle of reincarnation was so cruel that no matter how strong one was in the world, one would not be able to stop these kinds of things. Feng Jixing was sad as he softly said, Great Deacon Guyang had worked hard for the empire all his life. Now that he has passed away, it is really the empire's loss. Lin Muyu was silent as he stood there with a sour nose. He had been with Guyang for a long time and had long developed a friendship between them. Now that the news of Guyang's death had come, it was like a bolt from the blue to him. Mu, are you all right? Tang Xiaoxi held his arm and said softly. Nothing. Lin Muyu lowered his head and wiped his tears before saying, Older sister Chu Yao, use my name to send a letter back and order Lan Yen City to bury grandfather Guyang under the country guarding monument. And I know. In one's life, there were many things one could do and many things one could not do, but this was life and it was not up to others. At dusk, the sea breeze blew the waves and constantly hit the reefs and the beach. The east seashore was full of rugged reefs and most of the areas could not be landed at all. It was very easy to cause ships to hit the reefs, and this was something that no ship dared to challenge. Thus there were more than 10 ports in the Lingdong province and only 3 of them were open to the public. 2 figures landed lightly on the surface of the sea and walked forward slowly on the waves. The nearly 1-meter-high waves actually avoided them as if they were retreating and submitting. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi had to come to the East Sea once a day. This place was a full 500 miles away from Dongshuang City, but they still had to come. This was their mission and responsibility. Looking from afar, a few ships were faintly discernible on the surface of the sea with a dark blue-purple flower flag hanging on the bow, which was the symbol of the empire. It was a warship, the patrolling warship of the empire's navy. No one knew when the war would come and why the Tianji Empire and the Blackstone Empire, 2 countries that were originally at war, would unite and facilitate the emergence of an honorary Shang League. It must be the Qin Empire. It was precisely because of the existence of the Qin Empire and the Empire's army that the Skywater City felt threatened. Otherwise, with the arrogance of the Northern Dark Abyss, how could he possibly form an alliance with the Darkstone Empire that was weaker than him? The other reason was the Celestial Empire. Qinyu, Lin Muyu looked at the Far East and said, "Don't let me down. If you sit back and do nothing about this war, then the Qin Empire is finished. You will be next." Tang Xiaoxi smiled and said, "Mu, you are going crazy for the Empire. It would be great if I really went crazy. At least I wouldn't be so tired." Lin Muyu laughed at herself. "Are you okay?" Tang Xiaoxi held his hand. Lin Muyu gently pulled her into his arms. The 2 of them stood on the surface of the sea like a relief sculpture. "I don't know whether we can win this war or not. I feel that I can no longer control the future." Lin Muyu trembled and said, "When will Xiao Yin come back? When will she be willing to come back and help us?" Tang Xiaoxi hugged him tightly and tears came out of her eyes. "Everything will be fine." Tang Xiaoxi knew that the burden on his shoulders was too heavy. It was so heavy that even someone as strong as Lin Muyu almost couldn't bear it. The gains and losses of the world, the successes and failures of all ages. Anyone would probably be the same. Chapter 802. The Lost Forest was a forest in an unknown plain. The Lost Forest was not very vast, but it was already controlled by the Western Heaven Realm. Because the terrain here was complex and ferocious beasts ran amok, it was treated as the last trial field of the Western Divine Realm. In this Lost Forest, the participants would kill each other. Rather than calling it a forest in another plane, it would be more appropriate to call it the graveyard of the gods. For thousands of years, how many outstanding and talented gods had fallen here, becoming the spoils of war for others. Swoosh, 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 a few streams of light shot out in the sky. Each stream of light was a god. There were 20 participants, and a total of 20 God Emperor level experts were used to supervise this trial. In the night wind, Li Fei's short red cloak swayed with the wind. The moonlight outlined her enchanting figure and charming face. She stood in the wind, hiding her aura to the point where it was almost impossible to detect her, like a leaf in the wind. Her beautiful eyes shone as she quietly watched everything in the forest. The 20 participants had already spread out. Next, it was time to see how they would perform. The killing would only stop when there were only 10 people left. Rustle! A clear sound came from the leaves in the grass. In the darkness, a beautiful figure crouched in the bushes. It was Xin. She did not fly, because once she used her divine power to fly, she would definitely expose her position and attract other hunters. This was the last trial, and it was destined that she would not have any friends. She held the star's sword in her hand, and the blade was not unsheathed. On her waist, there was a military knife that she had brought from the banished land. This knife was not a divine weapon, but it was sharp. However, at the crucial moment, this kind of inconspicuous weapon would always play a magical role. Xin was waiting for the appearance of her prey. Perhaps, it could be said that she was waiting for the trial to end. As long as she was not killed and not on the list of 10 dead, she would pass. No matter what, these 20 people were people that she had been with for many days. Although Xin would not be merciful, at least she would not lose her nature and fall into bloodthirst and killing. After waiting for nearly half an hour, the prey finally arrived. In the darkness, a figure slowly approached. It was a man in his 20s, wearing leather armor. His face was filled with caution as he looked around. In his hand was a cross-shaped sword that glowed with a faint divine luster. It was Luoda, a disciple chosen by a prestigious family at the edge of the star region. He was at the 22nd Grotto Heaven realm and could be considered an expert. Shwa shwa. On Rhodes' neck, there was a nameplate shining with a silver luster. This was his nameplate, and it would also be someone else's spoils of war. Xin continued to remain silent and calm, as if his entire being had become one with the earth. Rhodes was injured. His left arm was dripping with golden blood. There were pursuers. Moreover, the pursuer wasn't far away. A powerful pressure covered the sky and covered the earth. A person fell from the sky like a bolt of lightning. Bang! The blade of the sword split a huge rock in half, emitting a radiance that was as bright as the sun. Although Rhodes dodged this attack, the aftershock had already burned Rhodes, burning through his leather armor and burning red marks on his chest. The blade of the sword was emitting a piercingly cold radiance, illuminating the face of the pursuer. It was Luo Pei, the chosen disciple of the Sea Breeze clan. "You really want to kill me?" Rhodes gritted his teeth, and his whole body trembled. "If I don't kill you, how can I obtain the Battle Angel's blessing?" Luo Pei tilted her head, and her face was filled with a smile. "If you want to blame someone, blame it on your own incompetence. Rhodes, see you in the next life." The blade of the sword trembled, and endless light energy surged into it, as if it was going to melt this godly weapon. Rhodes' face was filled with horror and pain. Although he was also a cultivator between the 20th and 30th Grotto Heaven realm, Rhodes was completely powerless to resist. Not only was Luo Pei stronger than him in terms of strength, but she also completely surpassed him in terms of martial arts and battle techniques. This was also the reason why he was defeated within 10 moves. Pang! Divine power erupted, and in the blink of an eye, the ribs in front of Rhodes' chest were burned to ashes, and his life was gone. His body was like a fallen leaf that was blown away by the wind, and it just happened to fall in the direction of Xin. He landed on the ground with his head raised, and he slid far away. His chest was burning, and he was only 1 meter away from Xin. A pair of eyes filled with fear and unwillingness looked at her. Not good. Xin's heart turned cold. What a coincidence, Rhodes' corpse just happened to expose her hiding place. She hurriedly leaped backward. Xin? Luo Pei was slightly stunned. She stepped on Rhodes' corpse with her battle boots, and reached out her hand to pull off his name tag from his neck. She almost broke Rhodes' neck. She raised her head to look at Xin, who was standing on the hill, and smiled. "Don't be afraid. We are in the same group, and Rhodes is just a pitiful individual. Why don't we work together? This way, no one in the entire Lost Forest will be our match." "Oh, is that so?" Xin's expression was calm. "Of course." Luo Pei spread out her hands and smiled. "You should have heard of our Sea Breeze clan, right?" "I don't know." "Ha, no wonder. You were originally a lost god from the banished land." Luo Pei smiled. The Sea Breeze clan is located in the distant southern border, and has the ruling power of 104 galaxies. Under our clan's command, there are 7 regular legions, and each legion has at least 1 million people. If you are willing to work with me, I will recommend you to join our clan. With your potential, perhaps you can become a legion commander within 10 years. "Is that so?" Xin seemed to understand something and said, "Then let's work together. But, shouldn't you share your spoils of war with me as well?" Luo Pei looked at Rhodes' name tag in her hand, laughed, and threw it out. Xin caught it and put it into the bag on her waist. She said, "Let's go and look for the next target." But the two tacitly chose to walk side by side. Not long after, a powerful aura appeared in front of them, but it was not a participant, but a grizzly bear that was at least 10,000 years old. "It's a mountain grizzly bear." Luo Pei suddenly crouched on the ground and said, "Don't underestimate this big guy. One slap is enough to shatter a god's aura, so we'd better be careful. One on the left, one on the right. I will bluff to attract its attention from the left, and Xin, you launch a fatal blow from the right. Remember, it must be a fatal blow." We can't waste too much divine power on beasts. She nodded. The two separated, and Luo Pei flew to the left, raised her sword, and burst into light. She laughed and said, "Hey, you idiot, come and eat me if you have such a good appetite." Roar, roar, roar. The mountain grizzly bear galloped away. Swoosh. Sheen's figure turned into a stream of light, and the star's sword in his hand, which contained divine power, stabbed straight at the back of the mountain grizzly bear. But at this moment, a crack suddenly appeared beside him, and a plane crack appeared. It was the ability to travel between planes. A familiar voice sounded in his ear, "But you are more terrible than the mountain grizzly bear." The burning sword light stabbed at Sheen's neck at an extremely fast speed. Just as Luo Pei said, humans were more terrible than beasts. The attack that he had been waiting for was actually reserved for his companion. However, Sheen would not simply believe the other party, as if he had foreseen all this. When Luo Pei's sword was about to fall, Sheen's body suddenly sank, and he barely avoided this fatal blow. At the same time, he raised his ankle and kicked Luo Pei's abdomen with a golden dragon crystal. Bang! Golden rays of light splashed in all directions, and Luo Pei could not help but let out a muffled groan as he felt a heart-wrenching pain in his abdomen. However, that was not the end of it. Shi Yin's sword pierced into his right leg, and a halo of light blossomed, completely breaking through Luo Pei's protective divine power wall. Roar! A black shadow descended from the sky. It was the mountain grizzly bear. It pounced down from above, and its sharp claws slapped on Luo Pei's shoulders. It opened its mouth and bit off more than half of Luo Pei's head. With another bite, the entire head was bitten off, and it was a horrible sight. Sheen quickly retreated, and she opened her hand and sucked Luo Pei's nameplate over. This way, she already had 2 nameplates. As long as she did not die, she was almost destined to be in the top 3. Swoosh! Her figure hid in the dark forest and did not appear again. In the air, a God Emperor-level instructor with his arms crossed watched coldly. He could not help but laugh. Interesting, what a ruthless little girl. No wonder even Deputy Dean Li Fei said that the people in this God's chosen trial are very strong. Bang! When it was close to dawn, in another direction of the lost forest, a corpse fell heavily to the ground. It was also a candidate from a different plane. Ding! Dora's arm was covered in the golden blood of the gods. She took off the nameplate of the dead man and hung it on her chest. On her chest, there were a total of 5 nameplates flashing. This meant that she had already killed 4 people. Dora suddenly turned around and looked at the other side of the mountain range. There was a ripple of divine power. She could not help but laugh, and her beautiful face was full of malevolence. "Terilyn, I found you." Swoosh! Her figure suddenly disappeared. Dora was like a goshawk falling from the sky, pouncing on its prey. The prey was Terilyn, who was holding a thin sword and running in the forest. 2 nameplates were hanging on Terilyn's chest, and her arm was injured and stained with blood. "Die, Terilyn." Dora abruptly raised his long sword, and a brilliant light burst forth, illuminating the entire forest as if it were daytime. Terilyn raised her head to look at the sky, her face full of horror. At this time, Li Fei's voice came from the distant sky. "The number of surviving participants is 10. The trial is over. All participants, come to me and calculate the results." "The trial is over," Terilyn shouted. She knew that she was no match for Dora. However, Dora did not have the slightest intention of stopping. Her eyes were full of malevolence as she shouted, "Childish. The winner does not need 10 people. All of you can die." Chapter 803. Bang! The soil flew up and the beam of light almost penetrated the ground for dozens of meters. A wisp of blood floated in the air. In less than 10 moves, Terilyn was defeated. Her body flew backward in the jungle like a cannonball, only stopping after smashing through countless trees. Her body was covered with thorns and bushes. Ugh! Terilyn quickly sat up and spat out a mouthful of blood. She knew she was running out of time. Dora's figure was like a phantom that came with the wind, constantly expanding the law of light divine power on the verge of erupting. How could this be? A stream of blood flowed down from Terraline's forehead and into her eyes, mixing with her tears. She wailed in a low voice. As an outstanding member of the younger generation of the Light Clan, was she going to die here? Moreover, the Light Clan's patriarch had already told the trial field to not let Terraline die no matter what. But where were the instructors in front of her? Hundreds of meters above the ground, Li Fei, Kulun, and the other instructors stood proudly in the air, overlooking everything in the forest. Their eyes were covered with a faint golden luster, which allowed them to see everything on the ground more easily. Are we really not going to help? Dora wants to kill Terraline. If Terraline dies, the old monsters of the Radiant Clan will never let us off. I heard that they dote on Terraline to the heavens in the Radiant Clan. An instructor said. Li Fei shook her head. No, we don't have to help. But Kulun held a ball of light in his hand. Li Fei's lips curled up. These 10 people will all become battle angels, but there can only be one level 7 battle angel. Don't you want to see a winner between Dora and Sheen? This. Kulun's voice was cold. At the cost of Terraline's life? That's crazy. Shut up, this is the will of the ruler. Kulun was silent. The light grew closer and closer, so bright that it was almost impossible to open one's eyes. Dola held a blazing sun in her hand, and her domain descended upon Terraline, making it almost impossible for her to move. Only the heavens knew how such a young woman could unleash such a powerful domain. Goodbye, father. Terraline knew that her death was near. She closed her eyes, and her bruised body trembled slightly. Buzz! Dola raised this powerful ball of law of light and smashed it down, intending to destroy the entire forgotten forest. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded in Terraline's ears. Open your eyes and form a wall of light to protect yourself. It was Sheen. Terraline suddenly opened her eyes. She didn't see Sheen, but she found that she had escaped from Dora's domain. She hurriedly sat up and opened her hands to condense the energy of the light wall. This was the only power that could protect her from harm. In the air, the dazzling light made it difficult to open one's eyes, but Terraline knew that a force that was not inferior to Dora's had appeared. Boom! An explosion sounded in the dark night. The two forces collided continuously, producing as many as 7 sharp explosions in a second. It was as if the entire forgotten forest was about to be destroyed. Waves of shock waves swept across the surroundings. Terraline furrowed her brows and forcibly protected herself with a barrier of light, but she felt a chill in her heart. She knew that the battle between Sheen and Dora was happening in the blurry barrier of light. She was of the same generation as them, but the disparity in strength between them was so great that it was hard for her to accept this fact. The light sound echoed endlessly, and the victor had been decided. A figure fell from the sky and landed heavily in the forest. Light splashed everywhere, and a gully of at least 100 meters was left on the ground. It was as if a meteorite had fallen from the sky. Amidst the lingering smoke, Dora struggled to stand up with the help of her longsword. Her body trembled slightly, and she looked up at the sky and murmured, "What the hell are you?" The sky was dark, and Sheen's petite body was almost completely invisible. Her voice was also very soft as she said, "The trial is over. Unnecessary killing is not a trial, it is bloodthirst." "You bastard!" Dora gritted her teeth. At this moment, Li Fei and the other God Emperor level instructors landed one after another, and participants from all directions were constantly gathering. The trial was really over. "Terraline, are you okay?" Li Fei asked calmly. Terraline shook her head and stood up by herself. "I'm fine. Thank you for your concern, Vice Dean." "You're welcome." Li Fei looked around and saw that there were only 10 participants left. "Congratulations, you will all receive the Battle Angel's inheritance and blessing. I now announce that Dora obtained the most nameplates, but she was just defeated by Sheen, so Sheen is the final number 1 in this God's chosen trial. Dora is ranked 2nd, Terraline, Lake, and Zhou Shimin are ranked 3rd, and the rest are all in the top 10. Tomorrow morning, all of you will gather at the trial hall and follow me to the temple. The ruler will personally host the Battle Angel inheritance and blessing ceremony for you." "Yes." Now all of you stand beside me. Everyone approached. Li Fei stepped on the ground and shouted. In the blink of an eye, everyone disappeared from the empty forest. Air swirled, and the empty forest returned to its original peace. If they wanted to liven up again, they would have to wait for another 100 years. After dinner, the dormitory was empty except for Sheen and Terralyn. The other girl had already been killed by Dora in the final trial. Sheen leaned against the headboard and closed her eyes. The power of the law of light slowly circled around her. She was still cultivating. Thank you, Sheen. Terralyn, who was flipping through an ancient book, suddenly turned around and sincerely said, "If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid I would have been killed by Dora." Sheen turned to look at her. "No need to thank me. So many people participated in the God's chosen trial, and only 10 people were left. We should cherish each other. In the future, we won't have such a friendship again." Terralyn muttered. "I heard that Luo Pei was killed by you." "Yes, he was courting death." Sheen's voice was calm. Terralyn smiled. "Then, if you meet me before the top 10 are decided, Sheen, will you kill me?" Sheen looked at her indifferently. After a few seconds, she said, "In the Lost Forest, it's not that I can't feel your aura. If I want to find you, it's as easy as flipping my hand." Terralyn was startled. The fear on her face disappeared in a flash, and was replaced by a smile from the bottom of her heart. "Sheen, you were friends from now on, right?" Sheen smiled. "Yes. Lake and Zhou Shimin grew up with me. They're not bad people. Maybe we can unite in the future, although Lake seems to want to pursue you." "Lake?" Sheen smiled. "I remember this person, but I don't have a deep impression of him." "Sheen, Lake is handsome and not weak. Will you be together with him?" "Be together?" Sheen couldn't help but smile. "I've never thought about it. Moreover, I can feel that there's someone waiting for me. I want to be with him, and there won't be anyone else. Who is it that our Miss Sheen thinks so highly of?" "I don't know. I can't remember him." Sheen leaned her head against the headboard and said helplessly. Terralyn closed her book and smiled. "It's okay. I'll accompany you. We'll go find him together." "Yes." Sheen nodded and thought for a moment. "Terralyn, there are a total of 10 of us who will receive the Battle Angel's inheritance. But I feel that things won't be so simple. You have to be mentally prepared. Perhaps what awaits us isn't great power or a noble status, but something else. Yes, I know. This year's Chosen of God trial is indeed strange, but I can't say what it is. Sleep early. You'll receive the inheritance tomorrow." "Okay." The next morning, the 10 participants woke up early. After eating breakfast, they gathered in the trial hall. This time, not only was Li Fei present, but there was also another familiar figure. Xian. The blazing angel had arrived. Xian smiled. When she saw Sheen, she opened her arms and hugged her. She patted her back and said, "Sheen, you really didn't disappoint me. Congratulations, you will become a powerful rank 7 battle angel." Sheen was a bit dazed, but she still smiled and said, "Thank you, Lady Xian." Li Fei said respectfully, "Since everyone is here, Lady Xian, shall we go?" Xian lifted her foot and lightly stomped on the ground. Immediately, rays of golden light surrounded the feet of everyone in the hall. With a "so" sound, everyone's body was pulled into a different plane. After passing through, they easily arrived outside a dignified and solemn building. Giant pillars rose into the sky, hidden in the clouds. This building was actually hundreds of meters tall. It was breathtaking. God Temple, the holiest place in the Western Divine Realm. "Follow me." Shi Yen smiled and stepped into the God Temple. The participants followed Shi Yen in. The inside of the temple was very spacious. In the center of the temple, there was a magic seal on the ground. Dozens of meters around it were divine servants. These divine servants were wearing white robes, and their faces were hidden under their hoods. They were chanting something. In the center of the temple, there was a luxurious throne. A person was sitting on the throne, and his body was shrouded in a light curtain. No one could see his appearance. Ruler Claude. "Congratulations, my children." Claude smiled faintly. Xin frowned. Claude's voice made her hair stand on end. Terralyn, Lake, and the others looked at each other in shock. Although they were all well-known figures of their families, none of them had actually seen Ruler Claude. Even their parents might not have had the honor of seeing him. Dora looked straight at Claude. His eyes were not filled with reverence, but with faith and fanaticism. Claude was the symbol of power and prestige, so Dora naturally felt a sense of servitude and admiration towards him. Chapter 804. You are all the cream of the crop in the divine realm, powerful gods who will rule the various planes in the future. May the holy light protect you forever. Claude's voice was very calm. Now, I will carry out the Battle Angel inheritance and blessing ceremony for you. Remember, Battle Angel is just a title, not a true angel. As long as you become a Battle Angel, you will have a chance to break through to become a four-winged Radiant Angel. When that time comes, you will be the mainstay of the divine realm. The group of contestants listened respectfully to the ruler's teachings in silence. The two seraphs, Shi Yen and Eva, floated to Claude's left and right, one on each side. They looked at the contestants leisurely. Shi Yen said, "One by one. 10th place, you go first." The 10th place was a contestant carrying a heavy shield. He respectfully came to the center of the temple and stood still. He knelt on one knee and said, "Thank you, Lord Ruler, for your blessing." Claude, who was shrouded in the light, had an indiscernible expression on his face. He merely smiled and waved his hand. In an instant, a powerful wave of divine power enveloped the candidate's body. With a low growl, he fell to his knees, as though he was in great pain. His blood was pumping and his veins were bulging. A strange light elemental power surged in his body, as though it was about to burst his body. Patter! In the sky above the temple, the thousands of statues gathered their palms together. Drops of holy water condensed together. Suddenly, a drop fell, falling straight on the contestant's head. Immediately, a golden light burst out. Ah! The contestant finally couldn't help but scream. His body twisted and struggled, and the shield in his hand repeatedly knocked against the stone bricks. About 2 minutes later, the light dissipated. He lay on the ground powerlessly, but a pair of blood-red light wings flickered behind him. He had received the inheritance. Blood-winged Battle Angel. The corner of Xian's mouth rose. Eva said, "I still remember the scene when I received the blood-winged Battle Angel's inheritance. Ouch, it was a nightmare. It hurt so much." Cough, cough, Claude coughed behind him, signaling the two restless seraphs to focus on the ritual and not speak nonsense. In the center, the newborn blood-winged Battle Angel knelt on one knee and said solemnly, "Thank you for your blessings, Lord Juggernaut. I will do my best to dedicate my life to light and justice." Claude nodded. "Go next." Number 9, step forward, Shi Yen reminded. The 9th place was a girl. She walked up a little awkwardly and knelt down on one knee to receive the inheritance just like the others before her. Soon, it was Zhou Shimin, Lake, and the others' turn. They had all obtained the level 6 Battle Angel's legacy and all had blood wings. When a pair of blood wings appeared behind Lake, Terralyn whispered, "How do you feel?" Lake's face was filled with excitement. "Thank you, Sovereign Lord. Thank you, Radiant Light. I can sense that my power is greater than ever before." Compared to before the inheritance? Double the power. Oh my God! Terralyn opened her mouth wide, seemingly looking forward to the inheritance blessing even more. Number 3, Terralyn, Shi Yen said softly. Terralyn stepped forward and knelt on one knee. Not long after, a pair of blood wings appeared behind her. Her power of light greatly increased, and her entire temperament seemed to have changed. The confidence on her face became incomparably proud. When she saw Xin and Dora again, Terralyn could clearly feel that her power surpassed theirs. Number 2, Dora. Shi Yen frowned. She did not like Dora, because this kind of woman who would do anything for power was actually very annoying and frightening. It was said that in order to learn the martial arts of the Sea Breeze clan in the trial, Dora did not even hesitate to sell her body and sleep with Luo Pei. However, Luo Pei had already been killed by Xin, and she did not feel any pity and was completely indifferent. Dora piously stepped forward and knelt on one knee, saying, "Thank you, Lord Juggernaut. I will be loyal to the light for life." Claude smiled in satisfaction and raised his hand to activate his divine power to bless. Whoosh, whoosh, waves of golden air reverberated around Dora. She cried out miserably and fell to the ground, as if her reaction was very strong. Li Fei could not help but frown. What's going on? With Dora's cultivation, she shouldn't be in so much pain, right? Shi Yan squinted her beautiful eyes. Is it the power of darkness? Eva opened her mouth, but did not say anything. Dora's screams grew louder and louder. She was practically rolling on the ground. This did not seem like a blessing, but more like a curse. Lord Juggernaut, what's going on? Shi Yan asked. Claude's gaze was cold. Pain is just to make her stronger. Everyone just watched and even felt a little sorry for her. Although Dora was bloodthirsty and cruel, making her suffer like this made people feel pity. Finally, after howling for nearly 5 minutes in the golden light, Dora slowly stood up, trembling. Behind him, a pair of black light wings unfurled with a whoosh. Heavens, a black-winged battle angel. Eva cried out in surprise. Black-winged battle angels, a cursed branch of the battle angel race. What's a black-winged battle angel? Sheen was confused. The shock on Terraline's face had yet to fade, but she still explained, battle angels are divided into 3 categories. One is the blood-winged battle angel, like us, and the other is the black-winged battle angel. Legend has it that the black-winged battle angel is a cursed member of the angel race. Their strength is lower than the blood-winged battle angel, but as long as they continue to kill and absorb blood, their strength will increase, even far surpassing the blood-winged battle angel. There's another type of battle angel, but it's only a legend. No one knows. Sheen fell silent. In the center of the temple, Dora knelt on the cold stone bricks, her whole body trembling, not out of fear, but out of excitement. Her face was full of a seductive smile. She knew that with her current strength, even 3 Sheens wouldn't be a match for her, because after transforming into a black-winged battle angel, she had broken through to the 50th heaven realm. Blessings and inheritances were ways to imbue divine power into one's body, greatly stimulating one's potential. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many high-level cultivators in the Western divine realm, and they wouldn't be able to compete with the East heaven at all. Terraline, for example, was originally at the 29th heaven realm, but after receiving the blessing of the blood-winged battle angel, she broke through to the 45th heaven realm. In the future, when she obtained 4 or 6 wings, her cultivation would greatly increase. Angel wings were the privilege of the Western divine realm, and also their advantage. First place, Sheen, accept the inheritance. Shi Yan smiled. She really didn't know how to hide her feelings, and her likes and dislikes were completely written on her face. Sheen stepped forward, and when he brushed past Dora, Dora sneered, and an almost inaudible voice floated into Sheen's ears. You better be able to inherit something stronger than me or else. I'll definitely kill you. Sheen didn't say anything, and only walked forward and knelt on one knee. The corner of Claude's mouth rose, and he raised his hand to carry out the inheritance ceremony. Whoosh, 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 waves of golden air swirled, and in the blink of an eye, it was like a storm had wrapped around Sheen's body. Instantly, a powerful force spread out, and even the entire temple trembled slightly. Dark clouds gathered outside, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Shi Yan looked at the sky outside in surprise. Eva opened her small mouth, and her eyes squinted as she smiled. This year's Chosen of the Gods trial is really interesting. Claude was even more stunned, and he stared straight at Sheen, who was enveloped in the light screen. Among everyone present, only he could see through the layers of golden light. Outside, Dora clenched her fists, and her eyes were filled with anger and hostility. Even the black wings on her back spread out involuntarily, as if she was ready for a fierce battle. Terraline Lake and the others looked at each other. Sheen's power was getting stronger and stronger, and it was rising higher and higher, to the point where they felt an inexplicable sense of submission. So powerful. Li Fei couldn't help but click her tongue. Kulin clenched his fists. What kind of identity does she have to actually have such powerful light divine power? Who knows? The golden shockwaves became thinner and thinner. When the golden mist dissipated, Shein was still kneeling on one knee. However, a pair of golden wings had appeared on her back. Golden-winged battle angel. Eva took a few steps back, and her face was filled with shock. Shein actually inherited the golden-winged battle angel. Oh my god, what a blessing. Claude almost couldn't sit still anymore. He coughed and said, "Not bad, Shein, you really didn't let us down. The first place of this year's Chosen of the Gods trial is actually the golden-winged battle angel." Very good. Terralyn was dumbfounded. Lake murmured, "Sheen's aura is so powerful. She's at least at the 50th level of Grotto Heaven." Zhou Shimin's expression was solemn. What's a golden-winged battle angel? Instructor Kulin's face was full of excitement as he explained in a low voice. The golden-winged battle angel is the king of the battle angel race, superior to the blood-winged battle angels and black-winged battle angels. There's only one in 10,000, and legend has it that there hasn't been a golden-winged battle angel in the past 100,000 years. I originally thought this was just a legend, but it seems like it isn't. Legend has it that the golden-winged battle angel is about 50% stronger than the blood-winged battle angel. Zhou Shimin was shocked. Shein stood up, hid her wings, and returned to her original position. She glanced at Dora beside her and said calmly, "Now, do you still want to kill me?" Dora gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, "Then you have to be careful when you sleep at night." "Okay, I welcome you at any time." The corner of Sheen's mouth rose and she said, "Even if you don't come looking for me, I will come looking for you. Don't worry." This time, it was Dora's turn to feel uneasy. Being targeted by a golden-winged battle angel was not a good thing. Claude stood up, and his body was enveloped by a holy light. He smiled and said, "Congratulations, the 10 of you have become the cream of the crop among the battle angels. This time's Chosen of God trial is not so simple. You will receive a new mission, and you will form a team of 10 to complete a mission that concerns the future of the entire Western Divine Realm. You have 3 days to rest, and that's it. Sheen, you stay behind." "Yes, my lord." Chapter 805. The divine servants retreated with the lamps in their hands. In the blink of an eye, the hall was empty except for Claude, Sheen, Shiyen, and Eva. Sheen was a bit confused. "Ruler, why did you ask me to stay?" Claude calmly said, "You have the power of the Azura in your body. You should understand that, right?" Sheen didn't expect that Claude already knew about this. "Sheen." Claude looked at her with a gentle gaze. People with the power of darkness in their bodies cannot become true angels. Although you've already completed the inheritance of a level 7 golden-winged battle angel, the power of the Azura in your body will definitely affect your future growth. So, this time, we must completely dispel the power of the Azura and let you become a pure law god of light." Sheen remained silent. Shiyen said, "Sheen, the ruler will use the Lost Paradise to purify your body, but the Lost Paradise is a cursed god artifact. You'd best think carefully before agreeing. Since ancient times, very few people have ever been able to leave the Lost Paradise. Even god emperors might not be able to do so." Her words were undoubtedly a warning to Sheen. "Shiyen, don't be so talkative." Claude said unhappily. "Yes, ruler." Shiyen lowered her head, her eyes flashing with unease. "Sheen, have you thought it through?" Claude asked. Rather than saying it was a question, it was better to say that it was a form of coercion. "Yes, ruler." Sheen had no choice but to submit to a fate that she couldn't control. "Good. Make your preparations. We'll enter the Lost Paradise in 2 hours." Yes, outside the hall, a cold wind blew, causing Claude and Shiyen's robes to flutter. "Shiyen." "Ruler, are you unable to see where you are?" Claude asked. Shiyen bit her red lips and did not continue speaking. "Sheen is just a wandering soul from the banished land. Is it really worth it for you to go against my will?" Claude asked. The great sovereign said that Xin is nothing more than a wandering soul from another plane. Why should we make things difficult for her? She has already experienced many hardships. If she were to perish in the lost paradise now, where would the heavenly Tao be? Heavenly Tao? Claude smiled. Shi Yan, is she really a wandering soul from another plane? Milord, what do you mean? Don't play dumb. Claude's voice was cold. No matter how Xin tries to hide it, she can't hide her sharpness. The divine spark in Xin's Yi is an incomplete divine spark of the law of light. The ability she uses is called the celestial dragon crystal. In all the planes of the universe, there's only one person who fits that description, and that's Qin Yin. Claude's eyes were full of cold light. He looked at Shi Yan with his sword-like eyes and said, "You are also a top expert with the cultivation of the 99th level of heavens. Can't you see this? Rather than playing dumb, it's better to say that you want to help Qin Yin, right?" But... Shi Yan was at a loss. "Shi Yan, you're too kind." Claude said, "If it weren't for kindness, there wouldn't be a second seraph in the Western divine realm, right? There's nothing bad about Eva becoming a seraph. Even if that's the case, there's no room for negotiation on this matter with Xin." Claude suddenly opened his palm, and a dazzling ice crystal appeared in his palm. "Even though Xin was Qin Yin in her previous life, I want her to be baptized in the lost paradise. She'll forget everything and become a divine general of the Western divine realm. My lord, what are you going to do? Have you heard of soul forging? My lord." Shi Yan immediately knelt down, her face full of pity. "Please have mercy, my lord. Once her soul forging, I'm afraid Xin will never remember who she is. Please reconsider. Say no more. I've made up my mind." Claude said, "If Xin doesn't enter the lost paradise, then there's only one outcome for her. Her chief god divine core will be taken away. A wandering soul from another plane doesn't deserve the chief god divine core of the law of light. This chief god divine core can only stay in the Western divine realm." Shi Yan looked desolate as she murmured, "Then, I'll listen to my lord and let Xin enter the lost paradise." That's right. 2 hours later, in the Great Hall. Xin waited quietly. She had already changed into a new set of clothes that belonged to a battle angel. She wore a white shirt and a white skirt, and a cloak embroidered with golden edges. Even her collar was embroidered with a golden cross pattern of the Western divine realm. She stood there quietly, as beautiful as a perfect goddess statue. Xin's looks are second to none even in the Western divine realm. Eva sighed. Claude couldn't help but snort coldly. "As a blazing angel, you're actually so immersed in your appearance. I'm a woman after all. A man like you won't understand. I don't want to understand either." Claude walked up and asked, "Xin, are you ready?" "Yes, Juggernaut." "Very good." Claude suddenly opened his palm, and the lost paradise in the form of an ice crystal shone with a dazzling light. In the blink of an eye, it transformed and became as dazzling as a star. Claude said, "All right, you can enter the lost paradise at any time. As long as you can survive for 3 days, the lost paradise will automatically send you out." "Yes, thank you, Juggernaut." "Wait, Xin," Shi Yan suddenly said. Xin was stunned. Lady Shi Yan? Don't call me lady, call me big sister." Shi Yan sighed. Xin smiled. "Big sister Hien." "All right," Shi Yan smiled miserably and said, "Come back alive." Then, Xin didn't say anything else. She turned around and leaped into the lost paradise. With a swoosh, the world spun around her as her body was pulled down by a powerful force. There seemed to be no end to this. One plane after another flashed before her eyes, and some of them seemed to bring back memories of the past. However, Xin didn't even have time to think about it. Suddenly, the light in front of her shone brightly, and she fell into an illusory world. Everything around her was the color of blood, and she couldn't see anything. This is the lost paradise?" She murmured. "This is what the lost paradise looks like, Buzz." A ripple appeared in the illusory space in front of her, and a middle-aged man in a long robe walked out. His face was filled with benevolence, and he said with a smile, "Xiao-yin, you're back." Behind him, the scenery continued to blur, forming into the shape of a majestic palace. There were also some guards in white robes and silver armor standing guard at the side. That was the Zetian Palace, and the man in front of her was Qin Jin. However, Xin didn't remember him at all. "Who are you?" she asked in a small voice. The middle-aged man smiled. After a long time, he said, "I am your father, Xiao-yin. How did you get so far away? So far that Imperial Father can no longer see you." Xin was stunned. "Imperial Father? Who exactly are you?" Qin Jin's smile was still gentle. "Xiao-yin, don't wander anymore. Return to Yu's side. That's our home. My poor daughter, you've suffered so much. Don't wander anymore. Imperial Father will always be watching over you." His body was abruptly torn apart by time, and what replaced it was a vast expanse of fertile land. The sounds of battle rang out everywhere. Countless cavalry and infantry charged on the battlefield. The Empire's war flag swayed, but it fell again, and was then trampled by the enemy's iron hooves, filling the ground with mud. Amidst the dripping blood, a young general was covered in blood as he staggered toward Xin. There were a few arrows in his shoulder and chest, and his leg had been pierced by an enemy's spear. He couldn't walk very well. He dragged his right leg as he walked over step by step, using his long sword to support himself on the ground. That long sword was very familiar. It was Xin's stellar sword. "Xiao-yin." He walked over step by step. Blood flowed down his face, but there was a doting smile on his lips. "Xiao-yin, you're back? I've waited for you for 5 years, 5 years. It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back." The sound of iron hooves could be heard, and a huge black shadow descended from the sky. It was a general who was completely pitch black, and he stepped on Xin's back. He vomited blood, and his whole body fell to the ground in a sorry state. He was firmly stepped on by the enemy general. "Xiao-yin, my Xiao-yin." Blood and tears flowed out of his eyes. He raised his head and looked at Qin Yin. The enemy's spear pierced through his chest, and his whole body was nailed to the ground. Xin's whole body trembled. She knew him. "No, no." She shouted with all her might, but it was to no avail. The enemy general pulled out his sword and grabbed Xin's short hair. The sword flashed, and blood spurted into the sky. The next moment, his head was already in the enemy's hand. Xin knelt down, and his whole body was on the verge of collapsing. The scene was torn apart again. The surroundings were a sea of blood, and countless corpses were lying on the battlefield. Broken spears and halberds were scattered all over the ground, and the war flag was on the ground, soaked in blood. The Empire had failed. Xin didn't know what the scene in front of her meant, but she felt as if her heart was being pierced by a sharp knife. Tears flowed down her face, and she knelt on the ground, sobbing bitterly. The lost paradise, the place where all the joy of the world was lost. What was the end of pain? It was heartlessness, and it was forgetting everything. Xin's whole body trembled, and she lay on the ground full of corpses. She was like a drop in the ocean of desolation and loneliness. Suddenly sitting up, Lin Muyu sat up from the bed, sweating profusely. Her mind recalled the nightmare just now, and she murmured, "Xiao-yin, Xiao-yin." Not far away, Bai Yin, who was sleeping outside the door, also woke up. He hurriedly asked, "Your Highness, what's wrong?" "It's nothing, it's nothing." Lin Muyu said softly, "I just had a nightmare, it's just a false alarm." "Bai Yin, what time is it now?" "It's 2:45 in the morning." "Oh, is there any news from the East Coast?" "Not yet, Your Highness need not worry. Go to sleep." Chapter 806. Early in the morning, the area outside Winterfrost City was bustling with activity. Many magic crystal cannons were escorted by soldiers as they slowly entered the eastern capital. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi stood on the city gate tower, watching as the magic crystal cannons entered the city one by one. Banners fluttered in the distance. Another army had arrived at Winterfrost City. They were the demons from the Endless Forest. A Fox Clan general galloped over on his horse, cupped his fists respectfully and said, "Princess Shi, we've arrived." Tang Xiaoxi nodded. "Thank you. Where's Ling Hu Yen?" "The saint will be here soon. Set up Camp 5 Lease to the south of Winterfrost City. Later on, the supplies department will head over to calculate all the demon army's needs and provide them to you. But if there's anything inappropriate, you can report to me." "Yes, Your Highness." Feng Jixing looked at the demon army in the distance with a solemn expression, pursed his lips, and said, "I hope that the demon's arrival will be able to turn the tides of this war. How many magic crystal cannons do we still have that haven't been shipped over?" "There's still quite a lot," Qin Xiling said respectfully. "Prince Xian, you've also seen it. The magic crystal cannons that entered the city earlier are all huge cannons with a diameter of 80 centimeters. They are the most powerful among the magic crystal cannons we have. A single cannon shot can flatten a small mountain. Therefore, these magic crystal cannons basically require 10 short carriages to move. It's very labor-intensive. Otherwise, logically speaking, they would have arrived at the eastern capital 10 days ago." "How's the situation with the defenses along the coast?" Feng Jixing asked. "Everything is in place," Qin Xiling said with a smile. "We've set up enough magic crystal cannons at all the ports that can reach the coast. Their firing range can extend to at least 1 li out into the sea. If the enemy wishes to forcefully land, they'll have a taste of the prowess of the magic crystal cannons." "All right." Feng Jixing smiled. "I'm relieved now. I've already mastered the 9 Heavens Vajra barrier. When should we spar? Use 50% of your strength." "You've already mastered the 9 Heavens Vajra barrier?" Lin Muyu was stunned. "Yeah." Feng Jixing's face was full of smiles as he muttered to himself softly. Suddenly, a faint golden wall of light surrounded his body. Sure enough, it gave people an exceptionally honest feeling. The highest realm of the diamond body protection was not fake. The Vajra barrier, the 8th Heavens God Force barrier, and the 9th Heavens Battle Vajra all required God Force as the source of energy. Before this, Feng Jixing hadn't stepped into the God realm, so he was unable to cultivate them. Now that he had obtained the forged Immortal lattice, he was able to cultivate them in one go. At this moment, in terms of defense, he was probably on par with Lin Muyu, who had the gourd wall and the Supreme Being lattice. Let's spar again when we have time." Lin Muyu smiled with relief, but she secretly sighed that she didn't have enough energy. Just practicing the star tactics and the cultivation of spirit tactics was enough to make her tired, and she didn't have time to practice the diamond body fortification. She had no choice. Her cultivation was based on attacking, and every move was fierce. This was probably the price to pay for the strongest attack at the expense of defense. At this moment, a rider flew over from afar and reported, "Reporting to Your Highnesses, there's a situation in the Eastern Sea." "Speak." Feng Jixing said. "We just received news from Yushu that 3 dragon knights have appeared over 1,000 kilometers east of Blue Wind Harbor. Their flying speed is extremely fast, and according to the speed of the messenger birds, they will arrive at Blue Wind Harbor in less than an hour." "What? An hour?" Feng Jixing was shocked. Lin Muyu asked, "How many troops are stationed at Blue Wind Harbor?" Wei Qiu respectfully cupped his fists. "It's the Courage Dragon Battalion's 20,000 soldiers. In addition, there are close to 20 magic crystal cannons and countless strong bows and hard crossbows. The Divine Might Battalion's encampment is less than 10 kilometers away from the Blue Wind Harbor. Duke Fan's 100,000 elite soldiers are stationed there and can be deployed at any time." Lin Muyu pondered for a moment, then asked, "Then which country are the Dragon Knights from?" "We don't know." The messenger replied. Feng Jixing pressed his hand on the hilt of the Crimson Phoenix and said, "Shall we go and meet these Dragon Knights?" "All right." Lin Muyu ordered. "Ouyang Yan, you and Sister Chu Yao stay behind to guard Winterfrost City. Big Brother Feng, Xiaoxi, and I will immediately head to Blue Wind Harbor. Wei Qiu, you go to the Divine Might camp and order them to break camp and approach Blue Wind Harbor immediately." Tang Xiaoxi stuck out her tongue. 3 Dragon Knights shouldn't be enough to make us mobilize so many people, right? Who knows if it's 3 or more? Xiaoxi, don't forget, Most of the Dragon Knights are at the Divine Realm. They can shatter space and fly. The moment they conceal their presence and fly over the sea, hundreds of Dragon Knights could descend upon Blue Wind Harbor in an instant. At that time, I'm afraid we will be unprepared. Yes, let's go. The 3 Divine Realm experts exerted their strength together, and 3 consecutive explosions appeared above the city. In the blink of an eye, they had already flown half a kilometer away. So powerful, Wei Chou, Citizen, Zhang Wei, and the others took a deep breath, admiring and envious. The Divine Realm, that was a supreme realm that mortals revere and yearn for. Blue Wind Harbor, a harbor that was built 5 years ago, had now developed into a small town. Due to the inconvenience of land transportation, many cities in Lingnan and North Ridge had switched from land transportation to sea transportation to save time and effort. There were countless cargo ships in Blue Wind Harbor, and at the same time, many imperial warships were stationed there. When Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, and Tang Xiaoxi appeared in the sky above the harbor, they saw cavalry galloping past below. It was the patrol cavalry of the Longdan army camp. Their appearance for no reason added some desolate atmosphere to the harbor. Looking disdainfully at the people in the city, Tang Xiaoxi said, "Looks like the Dragon Knights haven't arrived yet." Lin Muyu nodded and spread out her spirit pulse technique. She faintly sensed the direction of a few powerful auras and said, "On the sea, let's go there immediately." The 3 of them turned into 3 streams of light and headed straight for the sea. In the East Sea, a cool breeze blew, and the waves were unrestrained. Over 10 merchant ships slowly sailed on the sea, and numerous blood-red flags with the image of a bear hung on the merchant ships. With a single glance, it was obvious that they were the ships of the Darkstone Empire, but all of them were merchant ships, and there were only a few guards. In the sky above the merchant ships, 3 huge figures flapped their wings and flew high. Dragon Knights. Among them, the leader of the Dragon Knights wore the badge of a high-ranking general. He had red hair and a handsome face full of killing intent. He looked into the distance and said with a smile, "Looks like the main force is coming to welcome us." A Dragon Knight behind him said cautiously, "Vice Commander Han Shu, are we really going to fly into the territorial waters of the Shattered Cauldron Realm? If we go any further, we might be attacked at any time. After all, we haven't signed the honorary Shang League with them yet. What are you afraid of?" Han Shu had a cold smile on his face. This time, His Majesty sent us here to give them a warning. Moreover, I also want to experience the strength of the legendary sacred martial venerables of the Shattered Cauldron Realm. But Lord Commander said that we can't fight with them, lest we ruin our plans. Shut up. A general can't obey the Emperor's orders in battle. Don't you understand such a simple logic? If Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing attack us, are we just going to sit and wait for death? Calm down, they will be here soon. Yes. The 2 Dragon Knights behind him grabbed the reins together and caressed the neck of the huge dragon, comforting it and calming it down. Swish, swish, swish. 3 streams of light tore through the sky at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, 3 people wearing magnificent brocade cloaks appeared in the sky ahead. They were Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, and Tang Xiaoxi. Dang! The Ice Origin sword was unsheathed and emitted a sharp, buzzing sound. Lin Muyu smiled faintly and said, "The territorial waters of the Qin Empire prohibit any foreign race army from entering. Lord Dragon Knights, please return." Han Shu laughed loudly and cupped his fists. "I believe this must be His Highness Emperor Qin of the Shattered Cauldron Realm?" "Yes, and you are?" "I am Han Shu, the Vice Commander and Dragon Knight of the Blackstone Empire, one of the sacred martial kings of the Empire. Greetings, His Highness Emperor Qin." "So it's Lord Han Shu." Lin Muyu returned the greeting and said with a smile, "May I know why Lord Han Shu has come all the way to the territorial waters of the Qin Empire?" Han Shu said, "It's nothing much. It's just that your highness has seen it for yourself. These over 10 warships are filled with platinum and silver produced in our Blackstone Empire. His Majesty, the sacred martial emperor of the Blackstone Empire, has over 10 princesses and has long admired the exquisite brocade of the Shattered Cauldron Realm. His Majesty dotes on the princesses and thus wishes to use these gold and silver to exchange for some brocade and satin to make some nice clothes for the princesses. We dragon knights have been ordered to escort this batch of precious resources. Your Highness, please let us through. Feng Jixing frowned and said, even so, we still can't allow foreign armies to enter our territorial waters. Lord Han Shu, please understand. This must be Prince Xen Feng Jixing, right? As expected, he has a dignified appearance. Han Shu stroked the short beard on his chin and said with a smile, I've long heard that Prince Xen Feng Jixing is proficient in both the pen and the sword. You're well versed in the laws of wind, fire, and thunder, and your peerless saber arts are unparalleled in the world. He narrowed his eyes. Since Prince Xian doesn't agree to our request, then in order to show the friendship between our two countries, why don't we spar with martial arts and seek your Highness guidance? This way, I, Han Shu, won't have to return empty-handed. At the very least, I'll be able to witness the demeanor of a hero from the Shattered Cauldron realm. Feng Jixing's gaze was cold, and his two sabers were already enshrouded with gales and killing intent. Wait a minute. Lin Muyu stopped their plan to spar and said with a smile, Lord Han Shu, you're an expert at the sacred martial king realm while Big Brother Feng has only just stepped into the 17th level of the Grotto Heaven realm. If you challenge Big Brother Feng with your 57th level of the Grotto Heaven realm, won't you be seen as bullying the weak? I believe that the Blackstone Dragon Knights are righteous people and wouldn't do such a despicable thing, right? It was true that Feng Jixing was definitely not a match for Han Shu. This was something that he himself was very clear about. Han Shu clenched his fists and said with a faint smile, Then what does His Highness Prince Qin mean? Lin Muyu smiled and said, Prince Xen is my elder brother and is stronger than me. I can only be considered second in the Qin Empire. Lord Han Shu, 3 people have come this time around. Why don't you choose the second strongest among you to spar with me? How about it? Han Shu was stunned. The gaze of a dragon knight who wore dark green armor behind him turned cold as he said, Deputy Commander, since His Highness Prince Qin has issued a challenge, then we have no choice but to accept it. Gao Lian, think carefully. He's Lin Muyu, Han Shu said with a disdainful gaze. I know the pros and cons, Deputy Commander, please rest assured. All right then. Chapter 807. I am Gao Lian, the leader of the Black Rock Dragon Cavalry's 9th Squad. I am also a Dragon Rider General and a Martial King. Gao Lian held his dragon spear, his eyes filled with arrogance as he smiled and said, Your Highness, please enlighten me. Gao Lian's body pulsed with a total of 31 waves of divinity. He was a cultivator who had just stepped into the Martial King realm. Lin Muyu lowered her sword and silently looked at her opponent. Gao Lian wasn't that scary. Lin Muyu had already reached the Grotto Heaven realm and wasn't too far away from her opponent. Furthermore, with the strength of her supreme godhead, she might even be able to win. What was scary was Han Shu, who was standing behind Gao Lian. If Gao Lian lost, Han Shu would definitely make a move. At that time, it would be impossible to resolve the situation. However, they had no choice but to make a move. As long as they showed weakness, with Han Shu's ruthless style, he might just kill all 3 of them. Lin Muyu had no other choice. Please enlighten me, Your Highness. Gao Lian raised his dragon spear and suddenly roared. He rode on his dragon and flew over. The dragon spear turned into a sharp cone that carried a whirlwind and pierced straight towards Lin Muyu's chest. It was extremely fast and ruthless. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. Almost no one saw how Lin Muyu blocked Gao Lian's attack. She used the fallen star steps in her battle boots, and every step she took caused ripples of blue light to form on the walls of the void. It was a beautiful sight to behold. Lin Muyu's speed was too fast, but she moved in the air as if she was walking on flat ground. In a twirl, she arrived above Gao Lian's head. Her long sword slashed down sharply, and the light was dazzling. Come at me! Gao Lian's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. He suddenly flipped the human dragon unity, twisting it as he waved it. Like a drawn bow, the tip of the bow contained a tremendous force as it flew towards Lin Muyu's blade. Bang! The raging flames collided with the gales, and the strong airflow forced several people in the surroundings to retreat. Even Han Shu and the other Dragon Knight had to retreat slightly on their giant dragons to avoid the shockwaves. Gao Lian's figure flipped, and the giant dragon became incomparably agile. At the same time, the giant dragon's body was enshrouded in a faint azure light, as if it was a star. That was a kind of domain-level power. Once Lin Muyu entered this domain, she would feel as if her feet were stuck in mud, and it was extremely uncomfortable. She had already experienced this ability when she was challenging Lei Wen. The Dragon Defense Spiral was a technique that every Dragon Knight would eventually master. It was an ability that allowed humans and dragons to become one. Once a Dragon Knight mastered the Dragon Defense Spiral, their combat strength would increase exponentially. Roar! The dragon let out an angry roar and bit down on Lin Muyu's leg. Be careful! Tang Xiaoxi was so scared that her face turned pale. The giant dragon bit empty air because Lin Muyu actually increased her speed at the critical moment. She turned into a bolt of lightning and flew toward its master with the giant dragon's wings. Her long sword was imbued with star power. 5 mountains descend from the heavens. Gao Lian's killing intent surged. He laughed loudly and raised his dragon spear to parry. Clang! Sparks flew. The two strength was evenly matched, and the 5 mountains descend from the heavens was neutralized just like that. However, Lin Muyu's speed was faster, and her change of moves was also faster. As the sword in her right hand spun, her left fist was already covered in frost, and it directly hit Gao Lian's shoulder. Icy jade frost. Gao Lian's entire body trembled, and a golden ripple surged out from his shoulder. The protective wall around his body was instantly shattered into pieces, and frost rapidly gathered on his shoulder. The numbing sensation was very piercingly cold, and his speed was also reduced. Lin Muyu's movements were smooth. After that punch, her body slanted, and her entire body was like a bow that was filled with energy. Her right leg was filled with the power of the Law of Ice, and it was still the power of icy jade frost. After Yang Li's Law of Ice cast Immortal Lattice was tempered, Lin Muyu's attainments in the Law of Ice had greatly increased. Every strike was forceful and powerful, and it was clearly not something that Gao Lian could withstand. Her battle boots kicked Gao Lian's neck without any hesitation. The strength of this kick was so great that Gao Lian's body was about to fly off the back of the giant dragon. However, the Dragon Imperial Battle Spiral forcefully pulled him back, and he tumbled along with the giant dragon, cutting a sorry figure. Woo! The giant dragon let out a sorrowful cry. Its master was injured, and it was affected as well. Gao Lian spat out a mouthful of blood, and his neck and shoulders were almost covered in frost. He had lost, and he could no longer fight for a short period of time. His face was flushed red, and no matter what, he never expected this result. Lin Muyu's strength had already shocked him, but what truly made Gao Lian feel defeated was still Lin Muyu's fierce attack method and speed. That was a strength that far surpassed the strength that a martial venerable should have. Vice Captain Gao Lian held onto the giant dragon in shame, and barely managed to not fall. Use the Law of Fire to dispel the frost. Han Shu looked at him coldly and said, "This battle is not your fault. It is the opponent who is too strong." Yes, Vice Captain. Han Shu steered the giant dragon forward and smiled. The purpose of this spar is to make friends through martial arts. Thank you, His Highness King Qin, for your teachings to my subordinate. However, seeing that your Highness's cultivation is so impressive, Han Shu really can't hold it in anymore. Why don't your Highness give me some guidance as well? The aura in Lin Muyu's body was slowly flowing back, and she said with a smile, "Lord Han Shu, you must be joking. You're a martial king, and I'm a martial venerable. The difference is so great, and I'm no match for you." Han Shu laughed out loud. "Your Highness, you're too polite. Since that's the case, why don't we invite His Highness King Qin, His Highness King Xin, and Princess Shi to attack together? How about 3 against 1? 3 against 1? Feng Jixing was stunned. This Han Shu was too arrogant. However, he did indeed have the right to be so arrogant. After all, Han Shu was a super expert who was about to step into the ranks of divine emperors. Once he broke through to the 60th level of heaven, he would be a true divine emperor. Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes narrowed, and she did not say a word. Lin Muyu also fell silent. Han Shu could not help but laugh out loud. It can't be, right? With such a vast territory, could it be that the three strongest people in the Shattered Cauldron realm do not dare to join forces to fight against a mere Han Shu? Dang. Dang. Feng Jixing drew his two sabers and had already made up his mind. You, Princess Shi, don't let the deputy commander of the Blackstone Empire's Dragon Knight troop look down on the Shattered Cauldron realm. Since he wants to fight 1 against 3, then let's do it. Lin Muyu smiled. Alright. Tang Xiaoxi did not use the nation-suppressing whip. Instead, she lowered her hands gently, and streams of intense flames covered her entire body. Her 9-tailed demon fox transformation was about to appear. Everyone make way. Han Shu smiled and said to his two subordinates, "Don't be affected by my shattering powers." Gao Lian and the other Dragon Knight naturally knew how powerful Han Shu was. As long as Han Shu went all out, it was rare for him to meet a match. Although the three people in front of them could summon the wind and summon the rain in the Shattered Cauldron realm, they would most likely be defeated if they really went against Han Shu. The air seemed to be filled with suffocating air currents. Perhaps because the air currents were no longer flowing, the entire space seemed to have become a prison. That was a domain that was stronger than any of Lin, Feng, or Tang's domains. Han Shu cupped his fists, rode on the giant dragon, and said with a smile, "Han Shu, a cultivator at the 57th level of the Grotto Heaven realm. My ultimate technique is called Heaven-Shattering Fist, and it uses the power of spatial laws. Please enlighten me." Feng Jixing let out a low yell and took the lead to attack. The Scarlet Phoenix and Azure Dragon created two storms and pounced towards their opponents. Ping! When Han Shu raised his fist, the space in front of him froze. With a loud bang, countless cracks appeared in the plane in front of him, as if glass was about to shatter. Feng Jixing's saber force was instantly dispersed. Even the space was destroyed, so what could the power of the wind attribute do? What a terrifying spatial destructive power! Feng Jixing's body spun, and his face was filled with shock. Let's attack together. Lin Muyu didn't care if it was embarrassing or not. She rushed out like lightning, and her sharp sword turned into a golden light, instantly launching a concentrated sword slash at Han Shu's left side. However, Han Shu also responded with heavy punches, and every punch carried the power to destroy the space, completely sealing off Lin Muyu's sword chi. Hula! Flames swept past, and it was Tang Xiaoxi's close combat attack. Her sharp claws were enshrouded in light, and the 9-tailed demon fox's beautiful figure disappeared in a flash. The sharp claws landed on Han Shu's back, but a spatial crack also appeared there, almost perfectly blocking Tang Xiaoxi's attack. Tang Xiaoxi was sent flying by the power of space. Raising her palm, she attacked the dragon's abdomen with a divine array seal from below. Buzz buzz buzz. As if it had sensed the impending danger, the giant dragon let out a roar. Han Shu's arms shook in unison, and a thick dragon imperial battle spiral enveloped the giant dragon. With a loud bang, flames soared into the sky, and Tang Xiaoxi's divine engraving seal was naturally ineffective. Feng Jixing got close and slashed. The Crimson Phoenix was extremely fast, and struck the divine wall in front of Han Shu's chest with lightning. This time, Han Shu's reaction couldn't keep up. He didn't expect Lin, Feng, and Tang San to attack so fast. This strength was not like a Saint Martial Venerable, but a group of monsters from another plane. Rip. Lin Muyu's attack landed on the divine wall almost at the same time. Although it couldn't penetrate the divine wall, it consumed a lot of the divine power that Han Shu used to strengthen the divine wall. Get lost. In a hurry, Han Shu could only attack one person, so he chose the weaker Feng Jixing and heavily punched Feng Jixing's chest. With a loud bang, Feng Jixing flew back 100 meters, his face ashen. The fighting Vajra's protective divine power couldn't even withstand a single punch from Han Shu. You now is the time, Feng Jixing said sadly. In just half a second, when Han Shu raised his head again, he saw a long sword surrounded by pure divine power of the law of fire. It was Lin Muyu's dragon flame spiral break. The divine wall was broken in one blow, but the power of the spiral break was also exhausted. You're dreaming! Han Shu roared. Under the impact of the air wave, Lin Muyu's body seemed to be imprisoned. In the next second, Han Shu's iron fist landed on her abdomen, consecutively breaking the dragon blood battle shield and the wall of the gourd, causing Lin Muyu to vomit blood instantly. However, a golden vine wrapped around her arm, tightly wrapping around Han Shu's neck. Like a rubber band, Lin Muyu was pulled back in less than 2 seconds after being blasted away. A black arrow appeared in her hand out of nowhere, and she conveniently stabbed it into Han Shu's neck. Blood splattered, and Han Shu was instantly stunned. The divine power in his body was quickly blocked and drained away. In the blink of an eye, he almost lost all his strength. Demon Heart Arrow? Han Shu stared at Lin Muyu, dumbfounded. Chapter 808. Yes, it's indeed the demonic heart arrow. Lin Muyu wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and said, "It's a treasure found by the merchants of your country. Lord Han Shu, now that your divine power has temporarily disappeared, do you still want to continue fighting?" Han Shu's face was pale. Continuing to fight at this time was simply courting death. Han Shu's divine power had been sealed by the demonic heart arrow, and he could only have the cultivation of the divine sky realm at most. As for the other 2 dragon knights, one was injured, and the other was frightened. They were definitely no match for the 3 people in front of them. The Qin Empire is indeed full of talents. After Han Shu sat on the dragon's neck, he cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for your teachings, your highnesses and Princess Shi. Han Shu will go back and report to His Majesty now. The diplomatic relations between the Blackstone Empire and your country will certainly last for a long time. After the Honorable Shang League is concluded, the major merchant guilds of the Blackstone Empire will send merchant ships. Thank you very much." He was obviously much more polite than before. Lin Muyu didn't want to kill Han Shu. Killing him was a small matter, but attracting the 2 martial god-level experts of the Blackstone Empire would be a big problem. Moreover, this battle was just to make a show of force, so there was no need to kill them all. The Qin Empire needed time to prepare their forces. Then, "Thank you, Lord Han Shu." Lin Muyu looked at the dozen or so merchant ships on the surface of the sea and said, "I will personally escort these merchant ships into Blue Wind Harbor. After they have unloaded their cargo and replenished their food and water supplies, they will return the same way." "Then, what about our cloud brocade?" Gao Lian couldn't help but ask. Lin Muyu smiled. "We naturally have cloud brocade, but it's very expensive, so we can only give you half a ship's worth of cloud brocade and silk." Well, Gao Lian was a little angry. "Is cloud brocade more expensive than gold and silver? We have more than a dozen ships with very deep drafts, which are genuine platinum and silver." "Gao Lian." Han Shu suddenly scolded, "Don't be rude to His Highness. Since His Highness said so, he must have good intentions. Half a ship's worth of cloud brocade is fine." "But..." Gao Lian wanted to say something but hesitated. He was stopped by Han Shu's fierce gaze. "Then we won't see you off," Lin Muyu said respectfully. "Goodbye." Han Shu cupped his fists and urged the dragon to fly back. A few minutes later, the dragon had already flown far away. Gao Lian's face was pale as he said, "Vice Captain, we've lost these gold and silver ships just like that. How are we going to explain this to His Majesty when we return? In order to raise this amount of gold and silver, the provincial treasury has been emptied." "Cut the crap." Han Shu said coldly, "Is money more important or your life more important? I don't need to remind you about such a simple matter, right? Just now, Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing could have killed us at any time, but they didn't. Don't you know when to stop?" But Gao Lian's expression was one of unwillingness as he said, "But if we lose this gold and silver, how will we explain it to His Majesty and the Marshal?" Just say that there was a sudden storm on the sea and all the merchant ships were destroyed. But, once the merchants who unloaded the goods return to their countries, this matter will definitely be exposed. Don't worry, they'll never be able to return to the Blackstone Empire. Han Shu's eyes flickered with a sharp glint. Order the 3rd Dragon Rider Squad to wait on the islands along the way. Once these merchant ships return, kill them all without leaving a single one. All the merchant ships must sink forever in the sea. Yes, sir. Gao Lian's expression flickered with fear and reverence. In the afternoon, the fleet stealthily entered the port and was quickly received by a group of imperial soldiers. The soldiers of the Longdan army camp personally moved the goods. Watching the chests of platinum and silver being unloaded from the ships, Lin Muyu sat down on the dock, feeling very smug. She took a bottle of wine from an attendant and took a full gulp. A rich alcoholic fragrance immediately filled her mouth. The snowflower brew was as refreshing and sweet as ever. When did you learn to drink? Feng Jixing sat down beside Lin Muyu and asked for the wine. Lin Muyu gave him the bottle and said, "Drinking can keep out the cold and strengthen your courage." Ha! Feng Jixing drank a mouthful of wine and said, "The great princess you actually wants to use wine to strengthen her courage? What a joke! I'll be the first to not believe it." Otherwise, Lin Muyu gazed into the distance and said, "A single vice commander of the Blackstone Empire's Dragon Rider Squad is enough to make the 3 of us feel like we can't handle it. Once their army arrives, I'm afraid we'll have to use wine to strengthen our courage and fight bravely." Feng Jixing nodded in tacit agreement with Lin Muyu's words. He thought for a moment and said, What do you think our chances of victory are?" 30%, Lin Muyu muttered. "If the magic crystal cannons can cause large-scale destruction, maybe 40%. However, this is based on the premise that the 3 empires of the celestial pole continent are at war with each other. Otherwise, fame and fortune will leave us like fleeting clouds." Feng Jixing said, "The eastern capital can be considered settled. I'll be going to Skyspan province in a few days. Do you have anything to say to me?" "Yes, you must take care." "That's nonsense." "Ha!" At this moment, Tang Xiaoxi landed lightly on the ground and fished out a light golden gourd from her spatial pouch. She handed it to Lin Muyu and said, "Here, this is a gift from Sister Chu Yao." "A gift?" Lin Muyu shook the gourd. There was liquid inside, and after she pulled out the stopper, a strong aroma of wine wafted over. This was flowery wine, which had been brewed for at least 100 years. Tang Xiaoxi explained with a smile, "This kind of gourd is only grown in the entire Lanyan city by the Department of Spiritual Medicine. It's called glass gourd and won't wither even in winter. It matures once every 50 years. The surface of the gourd is as hard as iron and can resist flames and sabers. It's an excellent raw material for wine gourd and was originally used to hold medicinal wine. Sister Chu Yao knows that you like the taste of flowery wine, so she packed some and asked me to give it to you." Sister Chu Yao is so considerate. Lin Muyu sighed in admiration and tied the gourd to her waist, but she laughed at herself inwardly. Fortunately, she wasn't very used to fighting with the pear blossom spear. Otherwise, she would be like a reincarnated Lin Chong if she used the gourd on the pear blossom spear. Feng Jixing looked into the distance and said, "I really don't understand what the Blackstone Empire is planning. They're just testing us." Lin Muyu said, "It's just like fighting a snake. We have to test the waters time and time again before finally delivering the fatal blow. I think this time, Han Shu has figured out our strength and will soon launch an attack." Feng Jixing's eyes turned cold. What would have happened if we had been defeated? Lin Muyu smiled. "Han Shu will kill us and take our heads to claim credit. In 3 days at most, all the warships of the Blackstone Empire that are docked on the coast will rush here. Now that the east wind is blowing, their warships will arrive very soon." Feng Jixing clicked his tongue and stood up abruptly. "Brother Feng, where are you going?" "I'm mobilizing the troops of a few counties. I think a full-scale war will break out in half a month." As she spoke, Feng Jixing had already walked away. Lin Muyu untied the gourd and tied it back after drinking a mouthful of liquor. She also stood up and said, "Xiao Shi, let's go back to Winterfrost City." In the icebound pole, a barren grassland was gradually shrouded in snow and wind. This grassland was called the Green Plains, and was the warmest place in the entire icebound pole. Every year in the summer and autumn, the ice and snow on the Green Plains would melt, and the trees would sprout and bear some fruits, bringing some vitality to the land. But now, the Green Plains had been occupied by a dense demon army. Countless armor demons were digging the ground in search of potatoes, bugs, rats, and hibernating snakes to fill their stomachs. But even so, they still could not fill their stomachs. Under the imperial canopy, the demon emperor Feng Yuan's aged face was full of vicissitudes. On the side, Feng Jing, who was already a wife, wore a gray robe and closely guarded her father. Feng Ning, on the other hand, wore a snow-white robe and rode a warhorse to inspect the situation of the army. Tuck, tuck, tuck. The sound of hooves approached. It was a messenger. Reporting to your majesty, 132 armor demons have starved to death in the camp today. Marshal Qianfeng has sent a letter saying that no new living territory has been discovered. Got it? You may leave. Feng Yuan gently waved his hand and said, Marshal Shen, how many men and horses do we have left? Shen Baichuan respectfully said, reporting to your majesty, there are 30,000 armor demons and 40,000 Zhongnan iron cavalry left. Most of the Zhongnan iron cavalry have followed Marshal Qianfeng to find new territory. We only have 30,000 armor demons here. Yes, got it. Feng Yuan lightly held his cane and said, what a good Wei Chou. He forced us so badly. As long as Marshal Qianfeng finds a new territory, we will definitely make a comeback and make them pay with blood. Feng Ning moved her red lips and wanted to say something but stopped. Ning, what's wrong? Feng Yuan glanced at her. Father, Ning thinks that the most important thing is to find a suitable place to live. Revenge is only secondary. We can't overturn the entire god race for revenge. Yes, Father knows what you mean. I know. Feng Yuan closed his eyes. He needed to rest. However, the moment Feng Yuan closed his eyes, a tyrannical aura appeared in the sea of snow in front of him. His body trembled. What's wrong, your majesty? Shen Baichuan asked. A strong enemy has arrived in the north. Prepare for battle. Yes. The armor demons raised their weapons and shields. Pairs of bloody eyes stared at the snow in the north. There, groups of giant beasts with scorching auras were descending. Roar, roar, roar. Following the roars and the flapping of giant wings, black figures emerged from the curtain of snow one after another. They were actually dragon riders. Their entire bodies were wrapped in leather robes and armor, but strands of cold light seeped out from within their helmets. Their ice-cold dragon spears were pointed straight at the demon camp. Below the dragon riders was a group of beast cavalry shrouded in the heat of dragon flames. The mounts looked like fierce tigers, but they weren't. The cold swords were ready to be fired. They are... Feng Yuan gritted his teeth and said with a trembling body, could it be that the heavens want to destroy our god race? As the war drums sounded, the armor demons rushed toward their opponents in a dense mass. In the sky, the giant dragons flapped their giant wings and opened their mouths to spit dragon flames on the ground. The crowd of armor demons turned into a sea of fire. The power of the god-state warriors crisscrossed in the sky. The cold wind and snow intertwined, playing a sad song of destruction. The demon race was finished. Chapter 809. Snowflakes drifted between the sky and the earth. The snowfield stretched as far as the eyes could see. The cold wind was blowing, making the warhorses snort. A group of fatigued cavalrymen unloaded their armors and hung them on the sides of their horses. Even the demon battle flags had been crooked. They zigzagged on the snowfield and tried their best to avoid ice caves and icebergs. Otherwise, the horses would not be able to pass through. Qianfeng appeared to be especially cold as he tightened the foxskin scarf around his neck with a thick layer of frost on his dashing eyebrows. Frowning, he seemed to have smelled something. At the same time, he quivered all over and stopped where he was. Marshal, what's wrong? A deputy general asked. There seems to be a smell of blood. Qianfeng replied with a tight frown. Smell of blood? How far is His Majesty's encampment from us? 5 miles at most. Qianfeng became a bit restless as he abruptly whipped his warhorse and shouted, "Cavalrymen in the vanguard, follow me at full speed. Hurry up, everybody, drop your armors and march at full speed." The group of high-level demon cavalrymen became dumbfounded. Closely after that, they whipped their horses and followed Qianfeng. The hooves of the horses clattered against the layer of ice, creating a creaking sound. With over 1,000 cavalrymen marching together, it was as if there was an earthquake. Even the layer of ice began to crack, as if it would collapse at any moment. The smell of blood grew increasingly intense. When Qianfeng set foot on a piece of unfrozen wasteland, he saw an unforgettable scene. The boundless wasteland was covered with corpses of demons, armored demons, winged demons, and senior demons. Broken limbs were everywhere. Demon battle flags were crooked and broken. Many armored demons' corpses were still burning. The smell of burnt flesh mixed with the smell of blood was very unbearable. "Your Majesty!" "Jianghu." Qianfeng slid off the horse absent-mindedly as he staggered forward. His battle boots stepped into a puddle full of blood, splashing blood all over his body. Behind him, the cavalrymen were all shocked. Looking at the purgatory-like encampment, they were scared out of their wits. This was a nightmarish day for the demon race. It was even more miserable than the fiasco in the 8 wastelands. On this day, the demon race lost their last hope and became a masterless soul on the continent. "Marshal Qianfeng," the deputy general said with a gloomy face. It seemed that Qianfeng had not heard that. Leaning on his long sword, he walked towards the distance step by step. Over there, numerous armored demons' corpses were piled up like mountains. In the center of the corpses were a group of high-level demon guards with long swords. They were lying on the ground in disorder. Some of them had their hearts pierced through, while some had their heads chopped off. They all looked extremely miserable. Jianghu, Qianfeng trod on the blood while his blood-stained cloak was fluttering in the cold wind. He looked pretty embarrassed. There were many corpses of high-level demon guards around him. They were killed for protecting their masters. Armored demons in the periphery were killed for protecting versatile emperor. Right in the center of the battlefield, some headless corpses were lying there quietly. Why did this happen? Qianfeng sat in the blood with gloomy eyes. He held the cold hand of a corpse beside him. The strong wind messed up his long hair. He murmured, "Why? What did Jinger and Ninger do? Why did this happen?" He suddenly smiled, and his smile was extremely ferocious. He laughed for a long time. He laughed crazily until tears flowed down his cheeks. "Marshal!" In the air, a winged person shouted, "People are coming from the west. It seems to be a group of people riding dragons. They have launched an attack on us. What should we do?" Qianfeng held the headless corpse of Feng Jinger and said lightly, "Bury the bodies of His Majesty and the 2 princes. Leave the 2nd battalion to resist the enemy. The rest of you retreat with me. We have no food and weapons. We are no match for them." "Who are they?" the deputy general asked. "That is the emblem of the Tianji Empire." Qianfeng looked into the distance and said, "Retreat." The deputy general panicked. "Marshal, we have nowhere to retreat. Where can we go?" 8 wastelands. Let's return to the continent." This, 2 days later, in the eastern capital, Winterfrost City. Although it was already spring, the walls of Winterfrost City were still covered in a thick layer of frost as if it was winter. The soldiers on the walls were breathing into their palms to keep warm. In the distance, on the frozen road, 2 figures on horseback were approaching, carrying a golden flag on their shoulders. It didn't look like a war flag, but more like some kind of envoy's scepter. "Stop or we will shoot." The general in charge of guarding was Zhang Wei. He stepped on the battlement with his saber in hand. He shouted, "Who are you? How dare you come to the eastern capital without permission? You don't look like people from the Shattered Cauldron world." One of the skinny men smiled. "That's right. We are envoys sent by Lord Feng Lan, commander of the Tianji Empire's Longji Corps. We are here to give gifts to His Highness King Qin." "People from the Longji Corps?" Jiang Wei raised his eyebrows. Isn't the Longji Corps eating meat and drinking wine in the Tianji Empire? What are you doing in the Shattered Cauldron world? Take them down. The small door opened. Dozens of imperial soldiers rushed out and easily took down the two envoys. General Jiang Wei. One of the imperial soldiers said respectfully. We found a few brocade boxes on their horses. Would you like to take a look? Open them. Yes. When the brocade boxes were opened, Jiang Wei could not help but gasp. The arrogance and perverse look on his face were swept away. He said coldly, let's go. Bring them to Lingxi Palace. The sound of horse hooves galloped in the city. Very soon, they arrived at the East Palace. After several days of renovation, the palace looked brand new. Golden inscriptions were engraved on it. The three big words, Lingxi Palace, were engraved on the palace door. The name was thought up by Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing together. As for why they named it that way, the two of them were not clear. It was probably because of Tang Xiaoxi. A morning meeting was going on in Lingxi Palace. As the commanders of the various corps and the officials of the 3rd, 4th, and 6th divisions were staying in Lingxi Palace, the morning meeting was held very early. A huge sand table was placed in the center of the palace. It was filled with blue chips that represented the military strength of the various corps. However, there were no red chips because no one knew where the military strength of the celestial pole continent was. Your Highness. Jiang Wei's voice came from outside. Something bad has happened. Jiang Wei, what's the matter? Why are you so flustered? Feng Jixing raised his eyebrows and asked. Jiang Wei strode into the palace on the red carpet and said, two envoys who claim to be from the Tianji Empire's Longji Corps have arrived outside the city. They have brought gifts to offer to your Highness you. This gift, what's the matter? Why are you stuttering? Lin Muyu said, just what kind of gift is it? Bring it here. Jiang Wei waved his hand. 3 imperial guards carried the brocade box into the palace and placed the gift on the king's steps. Why are you being so mysterious? Open it, Tang Xiaoxi said. Yes. The imperial guards opened the brocade box. Immediately, Tang Xiaoxi, Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, Qin Yan, and the others were stunned. There were 3 heads in the brocade box. The heads of Feng Yuan, Feng Jing, and Feng Ning. Tang Xiaoxi staggered and fell to the ground. Her mind was blank. She muttered, how could it be like this? Her Highness Ning, who killed Her Highness Ning, so cruelly? She burst into tears. She had been trapped in the sky-reaching gorge of the Devil Clan for so long, but it was Feng Ninger who had accompanied her all the time. Who on earth killed such a gentle and graceful girl so cruelly? Her Highness Ning, Lin Muyu's heart was filled with bitterness. Feng Ninger's voice and smile were still vivid in his mind. He took a step forward and knelt on one knee in front of Feng Ninger's head. His voice trembled slightly as he said in a low voice, rest in peace, Ning. Are you all right? Feng Jixing looked at Lin Muyu worriedly, then looked at Tang Xiaoxi. He knew that when they were in Lanyan City, Feng Ninger had expressed her admiration for Lin Muyu. This kind of feeling was indescribable. Although they were not fated to be together, Lin Muyu definitely did not feel good seeing her being killed so cruelly. Reaching out to close the brocade box, Lin Muyu could not bear to look anymore. He hugged Tang Xiaoxi's shoulder and helped her up. He said in a cold voice, Jiang Wei, bring the 2 envoys in. The 2 envoys walked in slowly with arrogant expressions. The skinny one did not bow. He raised his head and looked at Lin Muyu. Looking at the rusted gold cloak behind him, he said, you are Her Highness King Qin, Lin Muyu? That's me. Lin Muyu's gaze was calm. He said, when did the Longji Corps come to the Shattered Cauldron world? The envoy laughed. When your Highness was in a deep sleep. Feng Jixing narrowed his eyes. There's no need to think about it. You guys actually went to the Devil Race's territory first. The Longji Corps must have come from the land bridge in the extreme north. But what I find strange is, how did you guys manage to cross the land bridge in the wind and snow that mortals can't endure? Even a sacred region expert would be frozen to death on the land bridge, let alone you guys. The envoy cupped his fists and smiled. You must be Her Highness King Exin, Feng Jixing. It's actually very simple. The dragon race is the race closest to God. The dragon race can use dragon flames and dragon imperial battle spin to help our soldiers survive the harsh cold. Right now, the 400,000 soldiers from the Longji Corps and the Luji Corps have gathered in the desert north. I heard that your country has been at war with the devil race for many years. Our commander, Lord Fong Lan, gave the order to wipe out the devil race to avenge your highness' humiliation. I've received orders to send the heads of the devil race's king and the 2 princesses as gifts. Your highness, please accept them. Before long, our Tianji Empire's Honorable Shang League will be stationed at your country's port. I hope that we can trade with each other and prosper together. So I should be thanking you guys? Lin Muyu smiled coldly. There's no need to thank me. The envoy smiled and said, as long as your highness King Qin is happy. No, there's one more thing that can make me even happier. The king of Qin suddenly raised his hand, and a flash of sword light flashed 10 meters away. The envoy was suddenly speechless. His head rolled down from his neck, and his body fell to the ground with a loud crash. Blood splattered on the envoy beside him. Someone, bring a brocade box and put his head in it. Let another envoy bring his head back to report the completion of the mission. Just say that this is my, Lin Muyu's, gift of thanks. I hope that Commander Fong Lan will accept it. Lin Muyu's voice was cold and brooked no objection. Finally, they still declared war. Feng Jixing muttered to himself for a while and said with a smile, although it's only a matter of time. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. She finally understood the meaning of the poem that the second prince of the Celestial Empire, Qin Yu, had given to her. The mountain is high and the river is long, and the journey is long. The light snow has just stopped, and it is raining continuously. Warm wine and chat in the pavilion. Who cares about the endless snow elsewhere? In fact, Qin Yu had long known that the Tianji Empire had sent elite troops across the northern polar land bridge to launch a sneak attack. But why didn't he tell her about it clearly? It was probably because Qin Yu didn't want the Tianji Empire to win, and he didn't want the Shattered Cauldron realm to win either. What he wanted to see the most was a lose-lose situation. When she thought of this, she felt an indescribable chill in her heart. No matter how sinister the world was, it couldn't be more sinister than the human heart. Chapter 8:10. Thank you, Your Highness, for sparing our lives. Another envoy trembled as he held the brocade box containing his comrade's head. He retreated and ran away as if he was afraid that Lin Muyu would suddenly change her mind and order him to be killed. Fong Lan of the Longji Corps only wanted to use the head of the demon race's leader to demonstrate his power, but he didn't expect that Lin Muyu wouldn't be threatened at all. The entire Lingxi palace was silent. No one spoke, only the sound of the guards dragging the corpses away could be heard. Lin Muyu placed her hand on Tang Xiaoxi's shoulder and ordered, "Men, bring the corpses of Feng Yuan, Feng Jing, and Feng Ning down and bury them outside the city. Follow the etiquette of an emperor and bury them together with the dukes and nobles of Winterfrost City in the royal mausoleum." "Yes, Your Highness." The officials were silent. Only one person raised his head. It was Xing Yifan. He said respectfully, "Your Highness' actions just now were inappropriate. We shouldn't have killed the envoy of the Longji Corps. I'm afraid that the Longji Corps will soon march south." "I know." Lin Muyu nodded. "Duke Fan's teachings are correct. But I really couldn't hold back just now, so I killed that despicable and arrogant person. Now that I've made a huge mistake, I can only take one step at a time." "What does Your Highness plan to do?" Xiang Yu asked. "Our deployment has been broken." Lin Muyu walked down the steps and pressed the position of the Tong Tian Gorge on the sand table. "Maybe this is the first place to be attacked, not the east coast." Xiang Yu was shocked. "Then, we must immediately redeploy or else it will be too late." "No, it will be too late." Lin Muyu asked, "Duke Wei, how many troops do we have on the Tong Tian Gorge and the 8 wastelands?" 50,000, a total of 100,000. Wei Chou said concisely. 100,000. Zheng Yifan frowned. The demon race still has tens of thousands of armored demons and steel cavalry, but they still failed at the last step. I'm afraid that the 100,000 soldiers of the Empire may not be able to stop the 400,000 soldiers of the Tianji Empire, right? That's true, Lin Muyu said. The Steel Blade Army is willing to head to the 8 Wastelands to defend against the enemy. Luo Exen cupped his fists and said, No need. But just now, the envoy also said that there are 400,000 soldiers of the Tianji Empire. What he said might not be true. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, I've been to the icebound pole once, and it's indeed very cold. Mortals can't withstand that kind of temperature at all. The Continental Bridge is actually the continental shelf that connects the 2 continents. Although it's flat ground, the temperature is too low, and there's no food there. There are glaciers everywhere, and chariots can't pass through at all. Let me ask you, how could the 400,000 troops of the Tianji Empire cross the Continental Bridge? The Tianji Dragon Riders only have around 210 people, and they still need to leave some Dragon Knights behind to guard the border. That's why there are no more than 100 Dragon Knights here. 100 Dragon Knights are not enough to provide protection for an army of 400,000. He frowned and said, According to my estimation, the Longji army will at most have 20 to 30,000 people. It is impossible to have more, but there might be more than 100 Dragon Knights. It is more troublesome. Zhen Yifan said, Then how are we going to defend now? Will they attack the Empire's garrison in 8 Wastelands? They will, and they definitely will. But the main force of the Tianji Empire will definitely come from the sea, this is certain. Lin Muyu stretched her arms and said, This is just my personal guess. If anyone has any opinions, you can say it. Xiangyu said, The most important thing now is to inform the Empire's garrison in 8 Wastelands to strengthen their defenses, to prevent the Longji army from sneaking an attack. Lin Muyu nodded. Wei Chou, send someone to send 10 letters immediately, just in case there are any mistakes along the way. Other than that, Lin Muyu muttered, Pick 10,000 elite cavalry from the Longdan army camp, bring magic crystal crossbows, and set off as fast as possible to reinforce 8 Wastelands. I will go personally. Zhen Yifan was stunned. Your Highness, you are the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies, you can't go personally. It's all right, Master Fan. Zhen Yifan frowned, but Zhen Fang smiled at the side. Father, it's all right, Your Highness you is skilled and bold, and the Tianji Empire has sent out the Dragon Riders. I'm afraid that only Your Highness you can go to 8 Wastelands personally to control the situation. Yes, that's the only way. Zhen Yifan cupped his fists. Your Highness you, please be careful. Don't worry. Lin Muyu glanced at Tang Xiaoxi, Feng Jixing, Qin Yan, and the others and said, I will go to 8 Wastelands. Shao Shi and brother Feng stay behind to preside over His Highness Feng Ning-er's funeral. You must not be lacking in etiquette. Feng Jixing frowned. You are in a hurry to go to 8 Wastelands. I'm afraid it's not as simple as defending the northern territory, right? As expected, nothing can be hidden from brother Feng. Lin Muyu lowered her voice and said, There are 3 people in the demon race that we are most afraid of, Feng Yuan, the Saint Master, and Qian Feng, but they only sent us Feng Yuan's head. What does this mean? Feng Jixing's body trembled. It means that Qian Feng is still alive? That's right. If Qian Feng is still alive, then I must go to the north. Mu, what do you want to do? Tang Xiaoxi asked worriedly. Fight for all possible friends. You want to rope in Qian Feng? That's right. Qian Feng is a great general talent. The Tianji Empire destroyed his country. This is a great opportunity for us to fight for Qian Feng. If Qian Feng is willing to pledge loyalty to the Qin Empire, then it's like adding wings to a tiger. You're right. Tang Xiaoxi said, Then I'll go with you, at least we can look after each other. Anyway, the eastern capital doesn't need me. Lin Muyu had no choice but to nod. But when we arrive at 8 Wastelands, you have to listen to everything I say. I know. Tang Xiaoxi showed a trace of a smile. After the morning meeting ended, the officials dispersed. Everyone was anxious, and many officials were whispering. When the two envoys from the Tianji Empire arrived in the morning, it was tantamount to the two countries tearing off all pretenses, and an all-out war was about to break out. The rare few years of peace in the empire had passed, and in the blink of an eye, an unprecedented storm was about to come. Outside the city, the sound of horse hooves could be heard. 10,000 elite cavalrymen of the valiant Dragon Legion went into battle with light gear. They took off their armors, and only carried swords and magic crystal crossbows. They even only brought a day's worth of dry rations. Along the way, they passed through the provinces of the empire, so it was not a problem to replenish their rations. Lin Muyu took off the Wangju cloak and changed into a white imperial robe armor, looking as handsome as before. Riding Snowwalker, she accompanied Tang Xiaoxi and left the eastern capital with the cavalry. Wei Chou and Bai Yin followed closely behind. On the city wall, Sidu Sen and Sidu Shui watched as the crowd left. "Only the two of us are left again," Sidu Sen said angrily. "Good things always happen first for Wei Chou. It's so infuriating." Sidu Shui giggled. "It's not necessarily a good thing to go against the dragon riders. Don't you think so, Ouyang Yan?" Ouyang Yan, on the other hand, looked into the distance absent-mindedly. After a long time, she murmured, "Tang Xiaoxi's crimson brocade dress is so beautiful." Sidu Shui, "Woo!" The flames in the illusion soared into the sky, burning every inch of the girl's skin and soul. She curled up in a corner and wailed in a low voice, enduring the pain that ordinary people could not bear. This was the third day since Xin entered the Lost Paradise, and it was also the last day. The entire ice crystal looked like it was about to melt, and the hall was also brightly lit. Claude's body was enshrouded in holy light, and he looked at Xin in the Lost Paradise with a stern gaze. A cast immortal godhead slowly flew out of his Wuxia and floated in the air, emitting divine power as it poured the soul-forging profound energy into the Lost Paradise. As the ruler of a region, the supreme god of the Western divine realm, Claude had always been ashamed of the grade of his godhead. He could not bear the fact that the dignified ruler only had a mere caste immortal godhead. So when he saw Xin's overgod godhead almost breaking out of its cocoon in the Lost Paradise, his eyes flashed with greed. "Lord Ruler!" Behind him, Shi Yan knelt on one knee, and her voice woke Claude up, pulling him back from his greed. "Oh, it's Shi Yan, what is it?" Claude asked calmly. "It's already the second day. The ruler must have used up a lot of his divine power." Shi Yan looked up at him and said, "Please rest, ruler. Shi Yan will help you look after the Lost Paradise." As she spoke, she glanced at Xin in the Lost Paradise and said, "If you continue, I'm afraid Xin won't be able to hold on much longer. She'll turn to ashes." Claude smiled. "If she can't even withstand this level of test, then she doesn't have the right to be the golden-winged battle angel of the Western divine realm. All right, I'm going to rest for a while. You watch over her." "Yes." "Shi Yan." "Lord Ruler, what is it?" "Don't be biased. No one can save Xin, only she can save herself. Do you understand?" "Yes, your subordinate understands." "Then I'll go. I'll be back in 2 hours." As soon as Claude left, Shi Yan floated over to the Lost Paradise. Looking at Xin, who was about to turn into a soul, she couldn't help but feel heartache. "Poor girl," she murmured. "Did fate torture you so much just to give you a new life?" But Xin couldn't sense Shi Yan's words. Her sea of consciousness was becoming blurry, and all of her memories were about to disappear into the Lost Paradise. If a person lives without emotions, then they aren't fit to be human, and they aren't fit to be a god. Shi Yan murmured in a low voice. Suddenly, some powder flickered in her hand and fluttered into the Lost Paradise like willow catkins. The powder passed through countless boundaries and finally seeped into Shi Yan's body, making her no longer so painful and becoming peaceful. "Shi Yan." A voice came from behind. It was Eva. Shi Yan was startled. She didn't turn around, but her face was deathly pale. "Don't worry. I won't tell the ruler." Lao Hua stood side by side with her and smiled. "Is that the powder of the red spider lilies?" "For Xin, you've really gone to great lengths." Chapter 8:11. The fire grew fiercer and fiercer, and the entire lost paradise had become a sea of crimson flames. Xin's body had disappeared, and only a few rays of light could be seen floating above the lost paradise. That was the power of her soul. Her soul form was already being reconstructed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Outside the hall, radiant angels, strength angels, and energy angels spread their wings and landed. They could feel that Claude's aura was becoming chaotic and violent, so they released their divine power and slowly gathered it into Claude's body. Claude immediately calmed down, and his aura became calm. The crystal in his palm slowly trembled, and the edge of the lost paradise was showing signs of cracking. However, he did not stop, continuing the final process of forging his soul. Shi Yan stood behind Claude, not saying a word, her beautiful face full of worry. Outside, the night was deep, and the moon was getting higher and higher. It was almost midnight. However, what made Shi Yan's heart ache was that the lost paradise had also calmed down, and Xin, who had entered the lost paradise, was completely silent. She seemed to have stopped resisting. "What's going on?" she muttered. Eva gritted her teeth. She can't be unable to bear the power of the ruler and have turned into ashes, can she?" The flames in the lost paradise burned fiercely, but they were extinguishing. The final process was finally over. Claude didn't say a word and looked at the lost paradise coldly. To his despair, he discovered that the lost paradise's spiritual power had been depleted. It was no longer a divine weapon and had been reduced to a mortal-grade ice crystal. Xin. In the distance, the other 9 participants were also waiting for Xin to break out of the cocoon. Terralyn looked worried. She could also feel that Xin's aura had almost completely disappeared. She's still trash in the end. She can't bear the hope of the divine realm at all, Dora sneered. Terralyn glanced at Dora with hatred. She really did not want to accept this reality. Lake said in a low voice, "It can't be. It can't be. How could Xin die just like that? It can't be." At that moment, Claude let out a low growl. With a flip of his hand, he flipped the lost paradise upside down, causing it to fall to the center of the hall like a small mountain. Boom! Flames soared into the sky, filling the entire lost paradise with flames. However, under the control of the sovereign's power, the flames were quickly extinguished. Amidst the thick smoke, it was a mess. The lost paradise was filled with burn marks. Terralyn was stunned. "She's not dead." Shi Yan's eyes lit up, and she couldn't help but cry out in surprise. The dignified blazing angel was so agitated that Li Fei, Kulun, the other instructors, and the group of radiant angel were somewhat dumbfounded. After all, Shi Yan was a famous ice beauty in the Western divine realm. She didn't show her emotions on her face, but now, it was clear that the layer of frost on her face was gradually fading away. Amidst the ashes of the lost paradise, the young girl sat there like a jade statue hugging her knees. Her face was almost completely buried in her arms, making it impossible for anyone to see her clearly. Shi Yin's clothes had been completely burned away, her fair and flawless body was hidden in the ashes, giving off a sense of beauty as if she had just survived a calamity. Shi Yan was already prepared. She flew over and wrapped a white cloak around Xin's body. She said softly, "Xin, are you all right?" Xin didn't speak, but her body was trembling slightly. She raised her head, and her exquisite face was as beautiful as if it had absorbed the spirit of heaven and earth. However, her eyes were closed, and the long eyelashes at the corner of her eyes were surrounded by a faint golden flame. She was trying hard to open her eyes, and her eyelashes were trembling slightly, as if she was in great pain and difficulty. "Something's wrong." Claude, whose whole body was shrouded in a dark light, narrowed his eyes and said, "Shi Yan, be careful." Shi Yan was startled. At this moment, Xin's eyes finally opened, and a golden flame seemed to devour everything from her eyes. The moment they met her eyes, the radiant angel, the energy angel, and the group of contestants felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave. What kind of eyes were those? People didn't want to see them, and even the gods had to retreat. Under Xin's eyes, people felt that there was nowhere to hide. At the same time, A wave of golden flame quickly swept out with Xin as the center. Boom! Shi Yan cried out in pain, and she used her arms to block her chest. 6 wings spread out behind her. She even had to enter her angel form to resist the impact of Xin's eyes. It was a kind of penetrating power that was a mixture of the law of light and the law of fire. It was very shocking. Xin, close your eyes. Claude suddenly opened his arms, and suddenly a wall of light appeared, enveloping the impact caused by Xin in the wall of light. There was an endless ping 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 sound, and Claude's expression became slightly ugly. She closed her eyes, and the moment she closed her eyes, the soul-stirring force field disappeared. Everyone sighed, feeling as if they had just survived a disaster. How could this be? Shi Yan stood a few meters away from Xin in a daze, almost unable to recognize her. It's the blazing eyes, Eva said calmly. Claude nodded. Yes, the blazing eyes have reappeared in the heavenly realm. What's the blazing eyes? The person who asked was Li Fei, the vice dean of the training field. She had 96 grotto heavens, but she didn't even know about the legend of the blazing eyes. Claude waved his hand and said, "Don't ask. No one is allowed to spread the news about the blazing eyes, or they will be punished by the Western divine realm." Everyone bowed their heads. "Yes, master," Shi Yan murmured. "What now?" "According to the original plan, we'll carry out the banishment tomorrow." Claude's voice sounded like it came from an ice cave. He felt a chill in his heart. He had originally planned to use the Lost Paradise to train Xin's soul and refine her overgod personality. However, Claude didn't expect her to be so strong-willed. Not only did she endure the destructive flames of the Lost Paradise, but she also benefited from the disaster and awakened the blazing eyes. The blazing eyes were only a legend in the immortal realm. However, Claude knew that the last person who possessed the blazing eyes became the master of the heavenly realm. What would the Xin in front of him be? Fortunately, Claude was relieved that the soul training was a success. Xin was obedient to him. Even if she had the potential to become the master of the heavenly realm, she was still his dog. Thinking of this, Claude felt a little proud. He said calmly, "Shi Yan, bring Xin to rest. Remember, unless absolutely necessary, do not open the blazing eyes. Do you understand?" With Shi Yan's support, Xin bowed and said, "Yes, master." Claude looked at the crowd again and said, "All of you are dismissed. All participants will come to the hall tomorrow morning to accept the next mission. Stay here. I have arrangements." The crowd left the hall and turned into streaks of light, flying towards the various spirit mountains in the distance. Duo La was dressed in tight-fitting clothes. He stood quietly in the hall and said respectfully, "Master, I'm here." Claude looked at Duo La and activated his divine strategy ability. He could see through everything about Duo La. Duo La was different from Xin. What she wanted was very clear: power and status. However, Claude could not see through Xin. There were always some people in the world that divine strategies could not see through. Claude knew what they were. "Duo La, do you want to become a 4-winged radiant angel, or even a seraph?" Claude asked calmly. "Yes, it's my dream." Duo La's gaze became heated. She knew what the master meant by this. However, Claude sneered. "Unfortunately, you're just a level 6 battle angel with black wings. You're just a lowly piece of trash. What right do you have to become a seraph?" Duo La was startled. However, what she felt was not humiliation. Instead, she felt a kind of excitement. A kind of excitement that was almost twisted. She straightened her body, revealing her pair of peaks. She said, "Because I can complete the mission the master gave me. No matter what the master wants Duo La to do, I'll do it even if I have to give up my life." "You're a smart person. Come, these are the artifacts I'm giving you." A faint light condensed in the air in front of Duo La to form 2 treasures. One was a spear that glowed faintly, and the other was a blood-red dagger. Both of these artifacts contained divine power. They were undoubtedly divine weapons from the Western Heavens realm. These are the Dig Spear and the Dagger of Time. Claude's voice seemed to come from purgatory. He said calmly, "The Dig's spear can pierce through all god walls. Even a god emperor of the 99 heavens would have to respect the Dig's spear. The dagger of time can reverse time. It's incomparably sharp. These two treasures are the divine artifacts I'm giving you. You need to be careful with them." Duo La held the two divine artifacts. Her voice trembled with excitement. She said, "Master, please grant Duo La a mission." "Heh, you're indeed very smart." Claude shrugged and said, "I'll send 10 of you to form a small team. Tomorrow, you'll be expelled from the divine realm and become wandering gods of the lower realm. You'll complete the mission I'm giving you. In the process of completing the mission, if Xin does anything disloyal to the Western divine realm, you're free to judge. But remember, don't let her open her eyes. If Xin uses the eyes of blazing dawn against you, you'll have to use the dagger of time to deal with it. Remember, if you want to kill Xin, you'll have to use the dagger of time to blind her eyes of blazing dawn. Otherwise, you'll never succeed. Use the Dig spear and the dagger of time well. I wish you success." "Yes. But you must also remember that Xin is the hope of the Western divine realm. If she remains loyal to me, you mustn't harm her. Otherwise, I won't let you off." Duo La couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. She knelt down respectfully and said, "Duo La will remember the master's teachings. Don't worry, Duo La will definitely complete the mission." Claude smiled faintly. "You and Xin are both candidates for the Blazing Angels. However, you still need more training. At the very least, it'll take 100 years. At the very most, it'll take 10,000 years. Go and have a good rest. Tomorrow will be the day you'll be the center of attention." "Yes." Putting the dagger of time into the leather pouch at her waist, Duo La carried the dazzling spear and leaped out of the shrine. Like a meteor, she fell towards the training field. Only Claude was left in the empty shrine. His eyes suddenly became a little dazed. He looked at the stars in the sky and murmured, "Eyes of blazing dawn, eyes of blazing dawn. Is this my fate?" Chapter 8:12. Moonlight shone on the floor tiles of the room like water. The girl sat quietly by the bed, her eyes still closed. This was Shi Yan's residence. The Blazing Angel's residence was very quiet, just like Shi Yan herself. Shi Yan sat by the round table in the room, holding the stellar sword. Her fingertips brushed across the blade, constantly sharpening it, causing sparks to fly. She was actually sharpening the sword for Xin. The room was silent, only the sound of sharpening the sword could be heard. "How do you feel?" After a long time, Shi Yan suddenly asked. "Lady Shi Yan, what kind of feeling are you asking about?" Xin respectfully asked. But her respect made Shi Yan feel a little unfamiliar. She frowned and said, "The feeling after obtaining the eyes of blazing light." "I don't know." Xin shook her head and said, "This is a divine gift, but I can't use it well. The eyes of blazing light is very destructive. It's better not to use it if possible." Shi Yan smiled meaningfully and said, "Xin, do you still remember who you are?" "I remember. I am a level 7 golden-winged angel of the Western divine realm, one of the gods under ruler Claude." Her voice was calm, but it was not to be questioned. Shi Yan couldn't help but feel a little pain in her heart. Could it be that the powder of the red spider lily didn't leave behind any memories? "That's good. It's good to forget everything." Shi Yan stood up and put down the sword, saying, "Only by forgetting everything can you let go. Only then will you be able to live freely. Perhaps this is the best result for you." She stood up and was about to leave when her hand was suddenly pulled. It was Xin. Her speed was unbelievably fast, and she had silently approached Shi Yan. "What is it?" Shi Yan raised her eyebrows and looked at her. "Thank you," Xin said with her eyes closed. "Thank you, Sister Haiyan, but I can't say too much." Shi Yan was overjoyed, but she suppressed her joy and nodded, "Yes. Be yourself. I will send you off tomorrow. In the future, I will always bless you, Qinin." "Qinin?" Xin was startled. "Why did you call me that?" "You'll naturally understand in the future. I'm leaving now. Tomorrow morning, someone will come to pick you up and bring you to the shrine. All right. Xin did not speak again, and neither did Shi Yan. They both knew that it was best for each other to remain silent. As Shi Yan slowly flew towards another shrine in the spirited mountain, Xin could not see her off and could only sense her direction with her spiritual sense. Fortunately, after the torment in the lost paradise, not only did Xin obtain the eyes of blazing dawn, but her spiritual sense, hearing, and smell had also greatly improved. At least, it was not something that cultivators of the same level could compare to. Under the moonlight, she quietly walked back to her room and lay on the bed, burying her face in the pillow. She did not dare to open her eyes, afraid that if she opened her eyes, everything she treasured would turn into ashes. The eyes of blazing dawn was a holy artifact formed from flames and light. It could destroy everything and control the universe, but it was also a curse. If she had a choice, she would definitely not want this pair of eyes of blazing dawn. The next morning, the shrine was very lively. Almost all the four-winged angels had arrived, and the two seraphim, Shi Yan and Eva, had also arrived. When Xin, Terralyn, Dora, and the others arrived, Claude also appeared. Terralyn stood under a huge stone pillar, staring at the spear in Dora's hand. She could not help but exclaim, "That's the spear of Diggs? How is that possible? Isn't the spear of Diggs the weapon of the ruler? How could it be in this woman's hands?" Dora sneered and did not respond. Lake whispered, "Terralyn, don't speak, the ruler is here." In the sky, golden clouds slowly gathered. Claude stepped on the clouds, surrounded by a group of radiant angels. He looked down at the 10 final winners of the God's Chosen Trial and said, "You are all the pride of the Western Heavens, but today you must accept your destiny, exile. From today onwards, you are no longer battle angels, but banished angels." Lake was shocked. "Exile?" Zhou Shimin also looked shocked. "Lord Ruler, why did you exile us?" "This is the destiny of your generation of battle angels." "Don't ask too much," Claude said indifferently. "From today onwards, the 10 of you only need to listen to Xin. She is your captain, and Dora is your vice-captain. Although there are only 10 of you, you shoulder the future of the entire Western Heavens. Follow me, I will take you to the Star Cave, and your exile will begin there. Xin, Dora, do you understand?" The two girls bowed respectfully. Claude, however, spread his arms wide. Suddenly, a powerful wave of telekinesis enveloped them and penetrated Xin and Dora's mental defenses. Immediately, the two of them felt as if they were under his control. A powerful wave of will was forcibly injected into their minds, as if it was an order that they couldn't defy. Within 3 years, Xin panted heavily, her face pale. Dora continued her words and said softly, "Help the celestial pole continent, destroy the shattered cauldron realm, and seize the sovereign's godhead. All right, don't speak. The 10 of you, follow me." With his hands behind his back, Claude proudly flew towards a spirit mountain in the distance. The Star Cave was a pitch-black and deep pit that led directly to a plain outside of the god realm. The divine spirits of the Western god realm who were severely punished would be thrown into the Star Cave, and the extremely strong power of the universe would send them to another realm, but it would definitely not be the god realm. Once you enter the Star Cave, you will be involuntarily sent to another plane. Therefore, hold each other's hands until the end, understand? Yes. Terralyn quickly held onto Xin's hand. Lake originally wanted to hold Xin's hand, but he did not get a response, so he could only hold onto Terralyn resentfully. As for Dora, she seemed to be on good terms with the others. In the end, it was Zhou Shimin who was the link between the two forces in the team. Claude's gaze turned gentle. He spread his arms and said with a smile, "Go, my children. I hope that you will become true experts and become the pride of the divine realm." The 10 of them leaped up together and floated in the air. Then, they slowly descended into the Star Cave. Very soon, the tearing force in the Star Cave became stronger and stronger, to the point that they could no longer stand steadily and fell into the dark space together. Light flashed before their eyes. Hundreds of meters in the Star Cave was equivalent to passing through countless planes. Xin had the highest cultivation among them, so she felt the least pulled by the star cave. She held onto Terilyn's hand tightly. Terilyn, on the other hand, was very flustered. She had never experienced such a space before. Sure enough, it was as if she had been banished, becoming an abandoned existence in the divine realm. "Where are we going?" Luo Fei, who was in the crowd with a shield on his back, asked loudly. Luo Fei was a very inconspicuous person. His results had always been outside the top 10, but in the last 2 trials he had performed outstandingly and entered the top 10 with a light attribute defensive martial art. "I don't know." Dora held her companion's hand in one hand and the Dig's spear in the other. "The ruler banished us, but he didn't specify where we should go. Perhaps we have to find this place ourselves." Sheen's heart stirred, and she quickly searched through the passing planes. Sure enough, there was a somewhat familiar one. She hurriedly pulled on Terilyn's hand and struggled to get closer. As a result, with Sheen's pull, everyone followed along. The gravitational force grew stronger and stronger, and soon, everyone deviated from the star cave's trajectory and fell straight into another plane. Whoosh, 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 starlight flashed before them, making it almost impossible to see anything clearly. Plane cracks continued to appear, and after an unknown amount of time, their eyes suddenly lit up, and they fell uncontrollably into the dark earth. Bang, bang, bang. Even if he was a well-known figure in the god realm, he still fell flat on his back from the powerful impact. Sheen maintained a posture of landing on one knee. She could be considered the least battered among the group. She closed her eyes and sensed her surroundings. Not far away, a black mountain stood in the wasteland, and it was very familiar. This was the Black Mountain. This was the land of exile. Sheen was overjoyed. As expected, she found it. "Where is this?" Another girl among the 10, Dory, asked blankly. Dory was a candidate from a mid-tier family and ranked 10th in terms of results. She was also the one with the lowest cultivation in the group, so she chose Dora. Only by following Dora could she protect herself. "I don't know." Dora's gaze was calm. "But the people in this plane aren't very strong. I can sense them." Sheen smiled inwardly. Naturally, they weren't very strong. She had already taken care of the ultimate experts in this plane. "Be careful." Zhou Shimin pointed to the other side of the Black Mountain. "Countless auras have appeared there, and some of them are rather strong. We'd better be careful." Sheen, on the other hand, leaped into the air and headed straight for the mountaintop. "Sheen, be careful." Lake and Terilyn shouted together. Dora frowned and said calmly, "Our leader is really reckless." On the plains on the other side of the Black Mountain, an army was slowly advancing. The sound of war chariots grinding against the ground was very heavy. A few leaders riding on giant wolves looked around, and the giant wolves under them opened their bloody mouths and let out low growls. Suddenly, a figure appeared on the mountain ridge, attracting everyone's attention. "Who is that?" a leader asked with squinted eyes. "No matter who it is, the land of exile doesn't welcome any invaders. Kill her." A few leaders riding on wolves brandished their battle axes and charged up the hill. However, as they approached the other party, they were suddenly stunned. One by one, they slid down from the backs of their wolves and knelt on the ground. They respectfully said, "Your subordinates greet the Dark Moon King." Sheen smiled in satisfaction. "I'm back. Gather everyone." "Yes, Dark Moon King." "How impressive." Terilyn couldn't contain her joy. "Sheen, is this your army?" "Yes, this is the land of exile," Sheen said. Dora raised his eyebrows. "Leader Sheen, we don't want to go to the celestial pole continent, but you brought us to the land of exile. What is the meaning of this? The ruler doesn't seem to have this intention." Sheen said indifferently, "The celestial pole continent is too far from the immortal realm. Only experts with the cultivation of God Emperor can travel to the celestial pole continent in one go. With our strength, we will only be harmed if we forcefully break through. Moreover, it is said that the Shattered Cauldron realm has a strong army. Since we want to help the celestial pole continent win this war, why don't we lead an army from the land of exile? I am the leader. I have the authority to decide." Dora couldn't refute. He clenched his teeth and didn't say anything. Terralyn looked at the sky, her eyes glowing with a faint golden light. She said, "The passage from here to the Shattered Cauldron realm will connect in about 3 days. We need to wait for the Wheel of Time to rotate, so we still have 3 days." Chapter 8:13. In the afternoon, the sun shone on the deserted jungle. Under the mottled shadows of the trees, the powerhouses of the land of exile were being reviewed by the Dark Moon King. Although they had prepared very seriously, they still looked crooked and uneven. The resources in the land of exile were very scarce to begin with. Not to mention a military uniform, they did not even have a weapon. As for the chariots and other things that fell from the alternate dimension, they were also pieced together and could be said to be vulnerable. Sheen wore the white robe of a battle angel and stood in front of the army like a beautiful jade sculpture. Dora sat on a crooked tree and sneered, "This kind of motley crew actually looks real." If the Western Heavens realm wants to rely on this group of trash to win against the spiritual mountain army of the Eastern Heavens realm, it's simply a fool's dream. I say, Sheen, do you really plan to bring these people to the celestial pole continent? Sheen didn't reply and just continued to use his spiritual sense to sense and review the army. A commander-class combatant walked forward and respectfully knelt on the ground. "Your Majesty, a few days ago, a battleship crashed into the Banished Lands from outer space, but their luck was very bad. They crashed into the Black Mountain and were burnt to a crisp. This subordinate has checked, other than the metal plates, the weapons on the battleship have all been destroyed and can no longer be used." Warship. Sheen didn't seem to understand. The leader smiled and said, "So the sky warship is an ultimate weapon that can fly in the sky. Except for God, the sky warship is invincible in the universe." "The iron sheets you were talking about?" Sheen muttered. "Yes, iron sheets, some useless things," said the leader. "Can these iron sheets travel through dimensions without melting?" asked Sheen. "Well." The leader pondered for a moment and said, "I used to be one of the executive officers on a warship. These iron sheets are made of special materials that can withstand the pressure and high temperature of hyperspace teleportation, so they must be able to withstand the baptism of the sand of time when crossing dimensions. To be honest, if it weren't for the protection of these iron sheets, I would have been burnt to a crisp after I strayed into the wormhole back then, and I would never have had the chance to serve the Queen." "All right," Sheen said, "collect these iron sheets and forge them into large iron boxes, big enough to hold people." "What does the Queen mean?" Sheen smiled and explained, "I want to take you guys to the celestial pole continent, so I need to make sure that you won't be corroded by the sands of time. Pass down my order to use iron sheets to build metal boxes. My army will be able to travel between planes in these boxes. Each box will contain 100 people, and they will be connected in pairs. We'll set off in 3 days. Those who are unwilling to go will have to remain in the Banished Land." The leader was stunned. "The celestial pole continent?" "Yes." "Does your Majesty understand the celestial pole continent?" "I don't know, but it's said that the celestial pole continent is rich in resources, with countless food and beauties." "Wow, go go go. We'll follow the Queen. We'll have no regrets even if we die." You're really good. Hurry up and forge the boxes." "Yes, we'll do our best." Under a tent made of tattered canvas, Dora, Luo Fei, Dory, and the others surrounded a bonfire, bored to death as they watched the food gradually cook over the bonfire. Fortunately, they had brought spare food in their spatial bags. Otherwise, they would have starved to death in a place like the Banished Land. After all, Dora, Luo Fei, and the others weren't willing to eat the food in the Banished Land. Sheen is gathering his army. Dora looked at the bonfire with a deep gaze and said, "Don't you guys have any ideas?" Dory's thoughts were simple. She said, "Having enough troops is a guarantee of winning a war. Isn't what Sheen is doing wrong? Besides, completing the mission and returning to the heavenly realm will be the credit of all of us." You're really simple-minded." Dora glanced at her and said, "Once Sheen holds power, can you guarantee that Sheen won't try to kill us? After all, if someone dies in the celestial pole continent, Even the Lord Ruler might not be able to detect it. Dory was stunned. Another young man who was cutting meat with a dagger raised his head and said with a smile, "Let's not talk about these mobs from the banished lands. In fact, as long as Brother Luo Fei says the word, we can have as many troops as we want." Da Vinci, what do you mean by that? Dora squinted his eyes and smiled. Very simple. Luo Fei is the young master of the Nia family, and the head of the Nia family is a friend of the celestial pole continent's Tianji Empire's emperor, Baiming Yuan. In other words, if Baiming Yuan sees young Master Luo Fei, he'll probably have to call you his nephew. Is that so? Dora smiled sweetly and looked at Luo Fei. Young Master Luo Fei, is that so? Luo Fei frowned and said indifferently, Xin is the captain of our battle angel team. Moreover, she's a golden-winged battle angel and has awakened the eyes of blazing dawn. In terms of status, she has long surpassed any of us. I feel that it's better not to secretly compete with Xin, lest we end up in a bad situation. What do you mean by that? Could it be that young Master Luo Fei is afraid of Xin? Dora smiled meaningfully. Don't forget, you're the young master of the Nia family. You have millions of troops behind you. Why would you be afraid of a mere Xin? Luo Fei gritted his teeth. Xin is also the sister of the blazing angel Shi Yan. Just based on this, who would dare to offend her? Dora opened her mouth. She was actually speechless. The dancing flames set off her beautiful face, and her mature body under the battle angel uniform was especially alluring. Dora, don't think too much. Give up. Luo Fei's gaze swept across Dora's chest as he said indifferently. Dora smiled. Late at night, the cold wind howled. The night environment in the land of exile was extremely harsh. Wild winds swept up flying rocks and smashed everything around them, so much so that the battle angel team had to activate a divine power barrier to defend against this kind of environment. Luo Fei wrapped himself in a blanket and placed his shield beside him. His ears were filled with the howling of the sand, but he couldn't sleep. He lay behind a rock to hide from the wind, but the sound only grew louder. After tossing and turning for a long time, a faint aura suddenly appeared behind Luo Fei. His whole body trembled. There seemed to be 2 lumps of softness pressed against his back. He didn't need to think to know what it was. His father had been very strict since he was a child, forbidding Luo Fei from getting close to women and being distracted. However, Luo Fei was already in his 20s, the age where he was full of vigor. He naturally knew what was behind him. It was a beautiful woman, and she was almost naked. It was Dora. She was the only one in the entire battle angel team who was so bold and unrestrained. Luo Fei trembled all over and could hardly speak. Fortunately, Dora didn't speak either. She just rubbed her full chest, and at the same time, one of her arms groped Luo Fei's chest. His ears were full of warm breaths. To have such a beauty as his companion in this barren land, Luo Fei couldn't help but be confused. He maintained the last of his calmness and looked into the distance. Terralyn, Lake, and the others were all wrapped in blankets and asleep. Xin was sitting there leaning against the stone wall with her eyes closed. It was unknown if she was already asleep. Dora leaned close to his ear and asked softly, "Are you coming?" Luo Fei's heart was in a mess. He stretched out his fragrant tongue, and suddenly a warm feeling came, making Luo Fei feel as if he had fallen into an abyss full of flames, sinking deeper and deeper, unable to extricate himself. Under the flickering flames, the 2 bodies rolled together, releasing the passion and desire belonging to God. At this time, in the 8 wastelands, a lonely city stood in the wind and snow. Zhongnan City, which originally belonged to the demon race, had become one of the territories of the empire. Looking from afar, the Zhongnan City in the wind and snow was shining with a ray of light. It was the light of the soldiers who were responsible for guarding the city wall holding torches. Since receiving the news of Long Ji Corps' attack, the entire Zhongnan City had entered a state of high alert. In the city, candlelight swayed in the marshal's residence. The huge map was filled with small words. The 8 wasteland plain was vast. It was as big as half of the Zhongnan province. There were dozens of cities belonging to the Zhongnan family scattered here and there, and the Zhongnan city was only the largest city among them. Lin Muyu pressed her hand on the ground and slowly walked to the table. Tang Xiaoxi held up a candle to illuminate for him. At the side, Wei Chou, Bai Yin and the others had an anxious look on their faces. Finally, after a few minutes, Wei Chou could not bear it anymore and asked, "Since we have already received the news of Qianfeng's troops, we should take advantage of the situation and attack. Your Highness, what are you waiting for? If we waste any more time, I am afraid that Qianfeng and his remaining Zhongnan iron cavalry will be completely annihilated." "I know, don't be anxious." Lin Muyu looked at the marked position of Longji Corps on the map and said, "Wei Chou, look at the terrain here. It is true that Qianfeng's army is trapped in the Wild Donkey Valley, but outside the Wild Donkey Valley is an even bigger valley, and it is a horseshoe-shaped valley. With the military strength of Longji Corps, I am afraid it will be easy for them to destroy Qianfeng's army, but they did not. Why is that? Could it be a trap set for us?" Wei Chou had been in the army for a long time, and naturally saw through it. "That's right." Lin Muyu pressed her palm on the table and said, "Feng Lan is waiting for us to rescue them. The road from Zhongnan City to the Wild Donkey Valley is very rugged. We cannot use too much military strength, at most a few tens of thousands of people, but just a few tens of thousands of people is definitely not a match for Longji Corps. They have the help of the Dragon Cavalry Regiment. It is not that simple. Then what do we do now? To save or not to save Qianfeng's troops?" "Save, but we need to bluff." "What do you mean?" "How about this?" Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, "You lead 20,000 Longdan Army Camp elite cavalry out of Zhongnan City, and bluff 50 miles away from the Wild Donkey Valley. Remember not to go more than 10 miles away from Zhongnan City, or else it will be easy to lose the cover of the magic crystal cannons and be chased by the dragon cavalry in the sky. I will lead 500 people, all dressed in white robes, and cross the mountains from the southwest snow region into the icebound polar lands, bring enough ropes, and rescue Qianfeng's army from the back of the mountain. Shaoxi will stay in Zhongnan City and be ready to receive us at any time. This plan must be careful. One mistake will lead to eternal damnation." "Yes, your subordinate obeys." Chapter 8:14. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The crossbows tore through the gale and shot into the bodies of the soldiers and the war horses. Blood splattered on the white snow like red plum blossoms. It was unknown how many times they had tried to break out of the encirclement, but it was all in vain. The entrance of the Wild Donkey Valley was already piled up with a thick layer of corpses. The devils didn't even dare to drag the corpses of their companions back, as they would only become the targets of their opponents. Countless cavalrymen threw away their helmets and armor and retreated. Their faces were pale and they couldn't get out. Qianfeng stabbed his sword into the snow in a daze. His body was extremely weak. The armor from his right shoulder to his heart was split open by the blade of the sword, leaving a long bloody wound. It was obvious that it was forcefully slashed by someone. The person who could cause such serious injuries to Qianfeng, who had stepped into the godly state, must also be a godly state expert. Moreover, Qianfeng's robe had been burnt to only a few dozen centimeters. That was the masterpiece of the dragon's breath. Marshal were trapped. The deputy general dismounted his horse and said, "No matter how hard our cavalrymen charge, we can't get out. They have placed many archers at the entrance of the valley. Even if we rush out of this Wild Donkey Valley, I'm afraid that their dragon riders will be waiting for us outside. The arrows of the Zhongnan Iron Cavalry have been used up. We can't resist the dragon riders at all. We will only become a delicious meal for the dragon if we go." "It's them." Qianfeng knelt in the snow with a dull look in his eyes. He murmured, "They are the ones who killed His Majesty They are the ones who wiped out the entire Protoss race." A few captaincy looked furious. One by one, they pulled out their swords and said, "Marshal, let's go and fight them. At worst, we will die. At least we will not let down the souls of our fallen brothers." "Do you know who our opponents are?" Qianfeng asked. "I know." The deputy general's voice trembled slightly as he said, They are from the celestial pole continent on the other side of the East Sea. They are the Tianji Empire's Dragon Cavalry Regiment and Longji Corps. Judging from their path and direction, they must have passed through the entire icebound pole to arrive here. Marshal, let's fight it out with them. This group of bloodthirsty beasts is even more ruthless and tyrannical than the Qin Empire's army. Let's fight it out and avenge His Majesty and the two princes. No, Qin Feng waved his hand. His lips were a little dry as he said, "How many men do we have left? How many war horses do we have?" There are still about 8,000 warriors from the southern plains. Many of their war horses have been damaged. Once they see the Dragon Knights, the war horses will be intimidated. Some of the war horses will even stop moving. Many of them have been lost. Now, there are only about 3,000 of them. Only 3,000? Qian Feng was at a loss. These 8,000 warriors are the last hope of our celestial race. If we really go all out, the celestial race will disappear from this continent. The deputy general was taken aback. Yes, Marshal. Then, what are your plans? Has the winged army brought any news? Yes, the winged army we sent out was chased by the Dragon Knights in the sky and suffered heavy losses. However, many winged army members still managed to escape. Someone brought back news. A day ago, a team of 10,000 cavalrymen from the Longdan army camp entered Zhongnan City. However, they were too far away, so we couldn't see if Lin Muyu and Wei Chou had come in person. Only 10,000? Qian Feng leaned against the short pine tree behind him and exhaled a breath of hot air. He said, "Lin Muyu has come? Otherwise, with Wei Chou's nature, he wouldn't have only sent 10,000 soldiers. Moreover, he wouldn't have come so quickly." As he said this, Qian Feng's eyes actually became a little livelier. The deputy general was stunned. So what if Lin Muyu has come? He is still our mortal enemy. Does the marshal expect Lin Muyu to lend a helping hand and save the last army of our celestial race? No, I won't place my hopes on him. Qian Feng grabbed the blade and his eyes suddenly became determined. He said, "Gather all the remaining winged army warriors and magic crystal detonators. Once the Longji army enters the wild Donkey Valley, immediately launch a self-detonation attack from both sides. Even if we die, we must let the beasts of the Tianji Empire know that the celestial race won't yield." At dusk, the flags of the Longji army and the Tianji Empire fluttered in the wind outside the wild Donkey Valley. The Dragon Knights were flying in the air, controlling all the air dominance and also making the demon race unable to move a step. On a slope, the snow was covered with dense horse hoof prints. More than a dozen people dressed in the armor of senior officers were standing on horses on the slope. Among them, a general with a slender chin and a long beard was wearing 5 gold stars on his chest. In the Tianji Empire, 5 gold stars represented supreme power. Apart from the emperor and the marshal, only commander-level officers and nobles could wear 5 gold stars. Needless to say, this person was the commander of the Longji Corps, Fong Lan. Behind Fong Lan, 3 deputy commanders wearing 4 gold stars looked coldly at the wild Donkey Valley in the distance. In the air, a mighty and steady Dragon Knight was sitting on the back of a dragon. It was none other than the Dragon Knight Su Chuan. No one knew that Su Chuan had actually come to the Shattered Cauldron world. They are already cornered beasts. Fong Lan held the iron spear and said with a smile, "The legendary demon race that almost destroyed the Qin Empire seems to be nothing more than this. Lord Su Chuan, when do you think is the best time for us to attack?" Su Chuan stroked his beard and said, "Commander Fong Lan is the commander of this army. Everything is up to you." All right. Fong Lan's eyes were filled with a fierce light as he said, "Attack immediately when it gets dark. Send out 5,000 troops on the ground. The Dragon Knights will cover in the air and guard against their surprise attacks from the sky." At this moment, a rider flew over to report. The warhorse was so fast that the horse's hooves slid a few meters on the snowy ground before it came to a dangerous stop. The scout got off the horse and knelt on one knee. "Lord Commander, Zhongnan City has already sent out their troops. The Longdan army camp has sent out about 20,000 people, and they are all cavalry. They set off 4 hours ago, and they are probably less than 2 hours away from here. Longdan army camp. Fong Lan couldn't help but laugh. I didn't expect our luck to be so good. We are actually going to clash with the #1 army of the Shattered Cauldron world so soon. 2 hours is enough. After we eliminate the demon race, we will immediately turn around and welcome the Longdan army camp. Alright, have you found out who is leading them? Their flag only has the word Wei and no Lin. It should be Duke Wei Cho who is leading them personally. Wei Cho? Fong Lan laughed heartily. Even a clown like Wei Cho is praised as a famous general in the Shattered Cauldron world. Good. This time, I will let them see the fall of a famous general. Sound the drums immediately. It's getting dark. Launch the attack on the Wild Donkey Valley. Yes. The war drums thundered, and the war was about to begin. When the densely packed beast cavalry of the Long Ji army stepped on the corpses of the demon race and entered the Wild Donkey Valley, it also meant that the war was about to end. Roar, roar. The mounts of the tiger leopard cavalry let out sky-piercing roars. The ferocious tigers seemed to be very hungry. One of the mounts opened its mouth and bit off the head of a Zhongnan iron cavalryman's corpse. Then it took a big bite. The white juice mixed with the blood, and the crunching sounds made people's hearts tremble. Since that's the case, then let's attack after we're full. A tiger leopard cavalry leader laughed heartily. The rest of the tiger leopard cavalry followed suit. The ferocious tigers began to devour the corpses of the Zhongnan iron cavalrymen on the spot. The speed at which they ate was very fast. 3 to 5 tiger leopard cavalry surrounded a corpse, and in just 3 to 5 minutes, there were only white bones left. It was a ghastly sight. In less than 10 minutes, hundreds of corpses had been devoured at the entrance of the valley. It was incomparably cruel. All right, attack. In the air, Su Chuan held the dragon spear in his hand and seemed to be a little impatient. Yes. The tiger leopard cavalry was known as the king of the beast cavalry of the Tianji Empire. However, in front of the dragon cavalry, they were just a group of lackeys on the ground. Therefore, the tiger leopard cavalry was naturally very respectful to Su Chuan, a dragon cavalry general. One after another, they lifted the heads of the tiger leopard cavalry and advanced in a straight line. The air was filled with the sound of the flapping wings of the giant dragons. Every dragon cavalry used their wings to protect the tiger leopard cavalry below them. Even with such a huge disparity in strength, the Long Ji army still maintained a perfect battle formation. It was clear that they were well trained. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The sharp claws of the tiger leopard cavalry stepped on the snow, making a rustling sound. Other than that, there was only the rustling of the cold night wind. However, Su Chuan frowned and said, "Something doesn't seem right." "What's wrong, Lord Su Chuan?" asked a commander in the tiger leopard cavalry. "I don't know. Tell everyone to be careful." "Yes." At this moment, the dark Wild Donkey Valley was filled with noises. One by one, torches lit up. It was the last few thousand Southern Iron Cavalry. Su Chuan took a deep breath and said, "They're here." However, Su Chuan was wrong. Qianfeng's intelligence was not below his. He thought too simply of Qianfeng. Swoosh, 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 in the air, figures flew down. It was the winged army. Each of them held a magic crystal in their hands. At the same time, there was a flashing detonator. It was a suicide attack. This was a tactic that Qianfeng had no choice but to use. Be careful. Su Chuan seemed to be able to predict the power contained in these magic crystals. He shouted, "All dragon cavalry, activate the dragon imperial spin." In the air, the roars of the giant dragons joined together. The power of the giant dragons merged with the power of the dragon cavalry, forming an azure blue dragon imperial spin. The dragon imperial spin was like a giant whirlpool barrier, protecting the dragon cavalry and the tiger leopard cavalry. Bang bang bang, mushroom clouds rose into the sky. Purple lightning instantly lit up the world. The suicidal magic crystal detonation tactic had been completed. The lives of nearly 500 winged army members disappeared in an instant. They turned into roaring purple flames. The power of the magic crystals was so strong that it formed an insurmountable curtain in the air. Did we succeed? Qianfeng's eyes widened. Sweat dripped from his forehead. The smoke and clouds dispersed. Roar, roar, roar. Dragon roars resounded, and Qianfeng's mood instantly fell to the bottom. He had failed. The Dragon Imperial Spin was not afraid of the magic crystals. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.